It's the final film of Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know, who knew they were still doing phases? I thought it was just one unending stream of piss. Ironheart is technically the last installment before Fantastic Four introduces us to Phase 6, but like a particularly noxious fart, they've been sitting on that for more than 2 years and will attempt to release it to the smallest audience imaginable in the hopes it will pass without comment. So for all intents and purposes, Thunderbolts is it. The end. The end of what? Well, nobody's quite sure about that. Thunderbolts was born from Marvel executives surveying the wreckage of everything they've touched in the last 6 years and assembling some kind of team in a bid to pretend it was all worth something. Like all people desperate for content, any kind of content, it doesn't really matter, we just need content, they turned to Disney+. Gone are the days when the official stance was that we didn't have to subscribe to Disney+ to follow the cinematic universe. Now, all those shows nobody watched are vital planks in the next Avengers saga, whatever it is. This then is the complete list of homework you'll need to do in order to be clued up on Thunderbolts, and so Avengers Doomsday, where these characters will presumably reappear. 2 hours and 13 minutes of Black Widow, 4 hours and 38 minutes of Hawkeye, about 5 hours of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, 2 hours of Captain America 4, 2 hours and 41 minutes of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, 2 hours of fucking Ant-Man and the Wasp? Let's face it, ain't nobody got time for that shit. Happily though, there is a special class of people burdened with glorious purpose, selflessly sacrificing any semblance of a social life in order to stay on top of these terrible stories. That class of people is called YouTubers, and I am such. So, like an oracle of the ancient world or an AI assistant of the modern one, allow me to impart my mostly accurate knowledge of the deep lore of Disney Plus Marvel. Plus a couple of those films that you'd forgotten ever released. Fucking Ant-Man and the Wasp, seriously? Think of it as something like speed dating, but for people you wouldn't want to fuck. Well, except maybe Florence Pugh, or maybe Hannah John Kamen, or maybe David Harbour.
And when Dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl, and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Thunderbolts has been hailed bafflingly for tackling mental health. This is because its characters don't have that, and their lack of it sometimes impacts the plot. If Yelena had had a better doctor, we might have got a better movie, and that's where this video's sponsor comes in. Zocdoc is a free online marketplace where you can search, compare, and book appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers covering pretty much any ailment you're likely to have. Mental health, dental health, eye care, skin care, no matter what you've broken or how you've broken it, Zocdoc will let you find someone to help you. Did you trip and land heavily on that vaguely phallic object again? Is it now stuck? Are you worried about the snide looks you'll get from your usual doctor? Well, don't be. You can use Zocdoc to find a healthcare professional who'll pull it out without judging you. Bedside manner's important, alright? I'm sure everyone's had a bad experience with a medical professional. It puts you off going back, which means your problems will stack up. Just look at the average English mouth. It looks like this because our dentists have all the charm, the terror, and the tools of a medieval sadist. But with Zocdoc, you don't have to put up with this anymore. Zocdoc lets you filter for doctors who'll take your insurance, doctors who are located nearby. It'll let you book appointments at short notice, with most appointments happening in a 24 to 72 hour window. Many providers will even offer same-day appointments. With Zocdoc, an appointment is just a few clicks away. As you get older, those little health things you used to brush off start to matter a lot more. Sure, when you're a kid, you might run full speed into a tree for no particular reason.
Oh, Christian. actually.
My dad said this knocked some sense into me, but I'm still waiting on the evidence. But the minute you hit 30, you're liable to break a hip just getting out of bed in the morning, so having a friendly, reliable doctor is a must. I'm not giving you medical advice because I'm not qualified to do that, but Zocdoc empowers you to choose the best of those who are. And the best bit about it is it's free. You can take a look today at my link, zocdoc.com/Little Platoon. That's zocdoc.com/LITTLEPLATOON, or by clicking through to my description. Many thanks to Zocdoc for sponsoring the channel, and now back to Thunderbolts.
We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
Yelena Belova, adopted sister of one Natasha Romanov. Yelena was introduced in the terrifically pointless Black Widow movie. Family being such an important part of Nat's character, it's what she'd been robbed of, so it was something she valued most highly. Nat cares a great deal about Yelena, which is why she mentioned her a grand total of 0 times across 3 whole MCU phases and never once bothered to look for her.
Where did you think I was all this time?
I thought that you got out and were living a normal life.
And you just never made contact again?
Honestly, I thought you didn't want to see me.
Bullshit. You just didn't want your baby sister to tag along whilst you saved the world with the cool kids.
You weren't really my sister.
Yelena, like Nat, was brought up in the Red Room, which for reasons of tax avoidance, Marvel decided to make into a very expensive CGI flying fortress. Unlike Nat, who defected and escaped from the Red Room, Yelena and the rest of the Widows were made victims of the MCU's, 15th type of mind control? The pungent, intoxicating musk of an evil Russian.
It's my network of widows that help me control the scales of power.
No, he's definitely Russian, General Dreykov. I have no jokes about this plot point because it is one. Whilst on a mission to kill a deserter, Yelena was fortuitously sprayed with another kind of magic musk that counters the effects of Dreykov's dry cock musk, and she winds up teaming up with Nat to take down Drycock and his Red Room, before leaving to track down and free the remaining widows from the tyranny of his BO. Yelena was then blipped out of existence, and when she returned, she learned that Nat had died. While at her grave, Yelena was visited by Vice President Selina Meyer, of whom more in due course, who told her that Clint Barton killed Nat. And this is Yelena's starting position as we transfer now into the terrifically pointless Hawkeye series. Being a trained and skilled spy and assassin, Yelena does absolutely no research to confirm the story and sets out to murder Clint. But then Clint tells her the truth, so she stops.
Your secret whistle with Nat. She talked about you all the time.
She did?
Yeah, that's not actually true though, is it? Yelena then walks off the set, and that's it for her for the next 4 years until we join her now, today, in Thunderbolts. In terms of personality and characteristics, she is mostly a Marvel character, which means she is mostly jokes and quips. But being played by Florence Pugh, there are at least implied depths to her character, and sometimes these even made it onto the screen, giving her some of the best as well as some of the worst scenes in anything she's been in, which is to say that serious scenes well performed are usually followed by an inappropriate joke that balks whatever tone the preceding scene was striving for.
Why the aggression, huh? Is it your time of the month?
I don't get my period, dipshit. I don't have a uterus.
Or ovaries.
Yeah, that's what happens when the Red Room gives you an involuntary hysterectomy. They kind of just go in and they rip out all of your reproductive organs. They just get right in there and they chop them all away. Everything out.
Okay.
So you can't have babies.
Okay, you don't have to get so clinical and nasty.
But in the hands of a better writer, her wry humor concealing a more vulnerable character who, much like Nat, values family and loyalty, could be turned into something quite compelling. Alexei Shostakov. Otherwise known as the Red Guardian, or if you're a Ponce, Symphony No. 5, Alexei was the adopted father of Nat and Yelena and sometime fuckbear of Melina Vostokov. Red Guardian was the Soviet Union's first super soldier back when that actually meant something. Since then, of course, we've had the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so now everyone and their mums is packing super serum round here. Largely forgotten by history, he tells tall tales about his rivalry with Captain America, and to its dubious credit, this time the Black Widow movie actually makes his non-appearance in earlier phases a part of his character. Kind of. Maybe. I mean, yeah, Cap was on ice throughout the Cold War, so obviously that would never have happened. And also, wouldn't that mean that the Soviet Union had a super soldier when the United States didn't have one because it imprisoned Isaiah Bradley for the crime of being black in the 50s? Oh, fuck it, never mind. The point they're trying to make is that Red Guardian is the hero of a dead empire, who, besides the Russians, still remembers Soviet warriors. What have they to do with their time besides reminisce and lie and tell stories and drink copious amounts of vodka? Alexei was Drycock's head merc and business partner, picking up a fake family for the mission to steal secrets from S.H.I.E.L.D., but then cast out of Dreykov's magic circle and into prison. Drycock had him incarcerated for, I think, criticizing the Russian government, even though Drycock has nothing to do with the Russian government in that movie, and the Russian government never features at any point in that movie, but fuck it, never mind. Rescued by Nat and Yelena and reunited with Melina, he begins to remember what it was to be a father, perhaps the only time in his life he had something worth boasting about. And this moment, which comes around 2/3 into the Black Widow movie, is pretty much the last thing there is to say about his character, who is otherwise defined by his boozing, his beer belly, and his butt of all the jokes. He's the butt of all the jokes is what I mean by that. Pathetic, washed-up strongman with a heart of gold, played with typical competence by David Harbour, he falls into the Yelena category of characters with unrealized potential. Thunderbolts could play on Red Guardian's history to give him a darker edge, combined and contrasting with his essentially kind and loving nature, or it could lean on the jokes, and I'ma predict the latter.
Avengers!
Rounding off our Black Widow returnees is Task Manager. This will be a quick one. Task Manager is a woman, except where there are action scenes, in which case she is quite clearly played by a man. She was Drycock's daughter, but she had her face exploded by Nat during the Budapest mission, so Drycock hit Ctrl-Alt-Delete and created Task Manager, a terrifying weapon with the power to end any process at will.
I had to put a chip in the back of her neck, and she fights just like all of your friends.
For some reason, the chip doesn't have a mind control program on it, and Task Manager isn't really a character, so she has no relationship with her father to speak of, and this means that she, too, is kept under orders by the scent of his unwashed cockney. Being in every way better than a boring old widow, you have to ask, though the movie much preferred that you didn't, why Drycock wouldn't have just put these chips in all of his women, but fuck it, again, never mind. That, anyway, is Task Manager. There's really not much else to say. The MCU fandom wiki explains, and I quote, that she was devoid of personality, and that is absolutely true. John Walker. Moving on to my favorite of the cheap whiskies, Johnny Walker was introduced in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that execrable show attempted to portray him as the villain, more or less guaranteeing that he would emerge as the hero. A decorated soldier and all-around good guy, Black Label was selected to be the next Captain America after Captain Falcon turned it down. Together with Bucky Barnes, Captain Falcon proceeded to be a salty AIDS penis to Johnny Walker all the way through the show, and wound up breaking his arm and stealing the shield back. Johnny Walker was disgraced after he killed a terrorist who had just murdered his best friend in cold blood. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was firmly on the side of terrorists.
You have to stop calling them terrorists.
Okay, fine. It was firmly on the side of situationally oppressed mass-murdering victims, and so it convinced itself that John Walker killing one of them was the point of no return. Straining under the weight of the shield and all it represented, Johnny Walker cracked, he got court-martialed, and he got sacked. Thereafter he became something of a rogue. Much like his country, the show wanted to imply, he was a fragile and volatile and problematically white man with a large ego and a small penis, making him prone to violent self-immolation. That the Falcon and the Winter Soldier managed to make him the best character and the victim of those it considered its heroes, that's just to be expected these days. John Walker took the Super Soldier Serum in a bid to become more like Captain America, which proved he wasn't cut out to be Captain America, because no true Captain America would ever take the Super Soldier Serum. And in the end, he was replaced and temporarily redeemed by Sam Wilson, Captain Falcon himself, who correctly diagnosed that terrorists only do bad things because the government isn't big enough. Much like the entire world, John Walker stood and watched in awe and learned as Captain Falcon told the senators to do better. A moment of moral awakening since completely forgotten because it was cringe and For more on how cringe and retarded it was, see my recent Captain America 4 video, or my second channel highlight video looking at precisely this point. The only thing you really need to know about this going into Thunderbolts, though, is that Thunderbolts will pretend that none of it happened. Having been dishonorably discharged, Johnny Walker was then recruited by Selina Meyer, taking on the alias US Agent.
We're not gonna need a Captain America. We're gonna need a US agent.
Intriguing, you might think. A new Black Ops MCU variant led by a lady with a plan? A darker, more modern world state where the line between heroism and villainy is blurred? I wonder what's in store for this gritty, wronged super soldier who has accepted that his commitment to his country will go unrewarded by his country. A more cynical Captain America who's accepted that sometimes the right thing can only be done in the wrong way. Yeah, there's some potential there. I wonder if we'll make use of any of it. Ghost. Oh, for fuck's sake, no one cares about Ant-Man and the Wasp. God damn it. Ghost's dad was kicked out of S.H.I.E.L.D. by Hank Pym. He got big mad, he did experiments with the quantum realm that got he and his wife killed, and blasted his daughter, Ava Starr, with quantum juice. Much like the box office of any recent Marvel project, this rendered her intangible and caused her great pain, and left her at permanent risk of falling apart completely. S.H.I.E.L.D. promised her a cure and built her a special suit to harness her powers, but they were only really interested in turning her into a weapon. So she wound up leaving S.H.I.E.L.D. and allying instead with Morpheus, who also promised to try and cure her. This led to a fight with Ant-Man and the Wasp because they were trying to bring Janet Van Dyne back from the quantum realm, and I guess there's only so much quantum juice to go around, so saving Ghost would kill Janet, at least until Janet came back like Jesus and decided that she had enough juice for days, some of which she gave to Ghost to make her feel a little bit better. I'm pretty sure the implication at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp is that Ghost was not completely cured, however. But then the blip happened, and everybody forgot about Ghost and her condition until the year of unholy Baal 2023, when Nick Fury had collected some of her DNA, along with the DNA of every other named character in the MCU, in a vial called the Harvest, which was then given to Daenerys Targaryen, which imbued her with everybody's powers and turned her into an entity so cheesy and unstoppable that the MCU would never acknowledge her existence ever again. Being a trained fighter and in constant pain, Ghost wasn't a very pleasant person, but the close of Ant-Man and the Wasp established that, in both Janet and Morpheus, she'd finally found people who cared about her. She wasn't, as I say, fully cured, and the Langs and the Pyms and the Van Dynes and probably also the Morpheus were blipped. Ghost didn't reappear in Endgame, even in the scene specifically designed to remind the audience that women have, at various points, existed in the MCU, so it was quite reasonable to assume that she died horribly. But no, it turns out she was just languishing right at the bottom of the barrel, and that's where the MCU finds itself these days, so she's back. Hooray. Bucky Barnes. The man least in need of an introduction. Everybody knows who Bucky Barnes was, because he had the good fortune of starring in Marvel movies that weren't shit. The natural successor to Steve Rogers as Captain America, Bucky was overlooked at the end of Avengers Endgame in favor of Captain Falcon, because, as Martin Luther King famously said, the color of your skin matters more than the content of your character. Bucky plodded his way through The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, sometimes trying to prove that he had overcome the sins of his past life, and otherwise showing a callous disregard for human life. Like the entire galaxy, he stood in awe as Captain Falcon told the senator to do better, because a guy who'd been mind-raped by the Soviet Union wouldn't have any problems with government agencies exercising their unchecked power as long as they do it properly. And this convinced him that Captain Falcon was absolutely the right person to hold the shield. Get fucked, you racist chuds! Bucky then popped up in Captain America 4 Falcon Kick to assure Sam that not only was he the best person to take up the shield, he was quite possibly even better than Steve.
Steve gave people something to believe in, but you give them something to aspire to.
And this, his one and only scene in that terrible movie, was where we first learned that Bucky Barnes, former brain-fucked Soviet and Hydra super soldier, killer of Howard Stark, assassin of JFK, who has lived his entire life in the shadows, except in Winter Soldier, because that film makes no sense. But he's running for Congress now.
I'll tell you what doesn't have a limit. Captain America's capacity for friendship. He's always been there for me, even when my dog died and I had to call in sick for work. Or when the Soviets had me shoot JFK. He was really cool about that.
He did not elaborate, he left. Meaning the why and the what the fuck is for Thunderbolts to answer, as I have no doubt that it will, compellingly. Contessa Valentina Allegra deFontaine. My left field choice for the most potentially interesting of the Thunderbolts cast, and so the one guaranteed to be the most disappointing, Selina Meyer was the closest the post-Endgame MCU had to a Nick Fury-type character. Nick Fury is no longer around, having been the victim of the great cuckening of Secret Invasion and the Marvels. Head of the CIA, and so quite clearly not to be trusted, Selina Meyer was actually the closest we got to a through line spanning the events of Phase 4, recruiting Yelena at the end of Black Widow, recruiting Johnny Walker in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, manipulating her husband and certified Wakanda simp Bilbo Baggins in a bid to secure a new vibranium source in Wakanda Forever, in a franchise spiraling totally out of control, having just one character teasing some sort of behind-the-scenes machinations that might tie things together. Well, that was something we could have built on. And now she's back, so maybe they will. She will be referred to as Selina Meyer throughout this video because, on top of her actual name being long and silly, she's clearly been told to play the role like it's Veep, which works very well in Veep because that's quite a clever show and it understands the rules of dialogue and comedy, but which might not work so well in a Marvel context, where all the writers are baboons. In any case, that completes our who's who, or who's that of Thunderbolts characters, and if you're at all familiar with this channel, you'll know there's usually an ulterior motive to everything I do. Most of the time it's luring away your wife or your husband, but often the reason for restating character histories, traits, relationships, and personalities is because the movie we're covering is about to take all sorts of liberties, like me with your wife or husband. So now we've had all that essential setup, let's see how terrifically, or terribly, it's gonna be terribly, let's see how terribly they all get paid off. Marvel's Thunderbolts begins with Yelena on a rooftop telling us via voiceover that there is something wrong with her. She feels an emptiness. This is not because of Nat's death, she makes sure to tell us, because we've already dealt with that apparently. No, this is a more general malaise of the mind. She says it feels like something bigger. She says it feels like a void, and then she jumps off the roof. This is to establish that she's a sad panda, because as you might have heard, Thunderbolts is a movie that deals with mental health. It doesn't just deal with mental health, Screen Rant says it deftly tackles mental health, which I mention here because no it fucking doesn't.
There's something wrong with me. And emptiness.
Or maybe I'm just bored.
Yeah, you'd better get used to this. This is how you deftly handle mental health. You have a character state that they have feelings, which is admittedly unusual in a modern Marvel movie, and then you have a quip to make sure that the audience doesn't share them. Yelena opens her parachute, which is a very good way of curing depression, and she lands on another roof. She's here to infiltrate a super secret science lab on one of the higher floors of the building. And she's parachuted in because this is a much more subtle method of entry than taking a lift or walking up the stairs. People might see you coming if you take the stairs, but nobody ever looks out of windows. That's not what they're for. Speaking of windows, subtlety goes out of one as she winds up walking in through the front door anyway and taking on an entire group of guards, explaining via voiceover all the while that she finds this job tedious. She clocks in, she clocks out, but she just doesn't feel fulfilled. The guards politely tackle her one at a time in order that she can win. Most of them obligingly roll around on the floor once she's hit them, but she does shoot a couple of these now defenseless men in the head as she walks off, which is interesting. She's not a cold-hearted killer even in Black Widow. Well, not after she's had the counter Cockney cock scent perfume breeze thing. And in Hawkeye, she goes out of her way to avoid killing Kate Bishop because she's only after Clint Barton. Like Nat, Yelena had a conscience. Like Nat, she has tried to overcome and make amends for the red dripping from her ledger. Notably, at the close of her involvement in Hawkeye, she doesn't kill Clint Barton because Clint gets through to her and she learns the truth about Nat's death. Having already avoided taking innocent life, she is then defanged by the revelation that she's been seeking vengeance for a crime that never occurred. A revelation that should have repercussions for this movie. After all, Selina Meyer told her that Clint killed Nat, and now she knows that this was not true. So Thunderbolts has to answer a very important question. Why would this essentially good and conscientious character now be acting as a cold-blooded killer for a woman she has every reason to believe lied to her? Lied to her about the death of the most important person in her life.
I don't have a purpose. And without purpose, I'm just an old leaf. Or like an old leaf in a river. What you think is that? Hey, you weren't listening to me.
See how the film deftly handled mental health and then deftly subverted expectations with a joke? Oh boy, we are so fucking back, goddammit. Yelena's voiceover, you see, was being delivered to a bound and gagged scientist sometime later. She kept him bound and gagged so he can listen to her talk about her depression, because this is something the audience needs to know. She needs him alive, she says, to get past that facial recognition thingy. I wonder how old Yelena might have handled a facial recognition thingy. No, I guess she has no choice but to wait for him to help her, or for some other guy to turn up with a more useful face. Speaking of, another guy turns up with a more useful face.
Stop right there.
You were trained in the Red Room. How has this happened? You're smarter than this. The scientist asks her if Selina Meyer sent her, and she says that the research in this lab is the property of Ox Group, which we'll learn later is a shady and secretive organization owned and run publicly by Selina Meyer. The Ox Group conducts highly illegal experiments, and yeah, it all gets incredibly silly very quickly, so we'll deal with it in a bit. In the course of her quippy bickering with the scientist, we get some important information. Number one, the government is investigating the Ox Group, so Yelena has been sent here to destroy all the evidence of something. Number two, Selina Meyer doesn't know exactly what's happened at this lab because, and I quote the scientist, Project Century isn't what she thought it was. Oh boy, 5 minutes into the movie and so many problems. This lab is owned and run and guarded by Ox Group. All these people take Selina Meyer's orders. All their co-conspirators throughout this movie do whatever she tells them to do. Why would you send in an agent to messily destroy a lab and all its evidence and kill all its staff with a high risk of failure, potentially leaving living witnesses given how fucking shoddy Yelena is at her job? Why would you do that rather than just getting your own employees to do it all for you, quietly, cleanly, and efficiently? Have you people not heard of shredders? Then, why wouldn't Selina Meyer know what Project Sentry really is? It's very important. She knows it's very important. We'll find out why later. It's abysmal. But it's her experiment in her lab, run by scientists she employs, guarded by soldiers she owns, all of whom know they work for her. If Science Man thinks Selina Meyer is making a mistake because she doesn't know what Project Sentry really is, why didn't he tell her what Project Sentry really is? Yelena, continuing to demonstrate precisely none of the skills she's supposed to have, fails to properly subdue Science Man, and he winds up shooting himself in the face, meaning she can't use that face to get past the face scanner. Oh dear, she must therefore be stuck.
Assignment is complete.
Oh, thank goodness. None of it mattered. It was just a massive waste of time. Speaking of, we're off to Congress. Freshman Congressman James Buchanan Barnes makes his debut and is immediately surrounded by journalists. He is, we are about to learn, a New York congressman, from Brooklyn specifically, which I guess means he's a Democrat, so naturally the journalists don't ask him about his time as a Russian spy or any of the many murders he's responsible for. No, they just want to know whether he has any thoughts at all on an ongoing impeachment hearing. And he doesn't.
Well, I'm not on the impeachment committee, but the rumors of wrongdoing are very worrying.
He's not much for public speaking, is Bucky. In fact, he's really quite terrible at it.
And worrying, and I think that my Brooklyn constituents deserve higher, so we're going to get to the bottom of this worrying issue.
It is statistically unlikely that you remember his appearance in Brave New World, but there is a part where he arrives in hospital to comfort Captain Falcon after Captain Falcon's wingman, Eagle Twink, face-planted a missile and nearly died. Captain Falcon seemed to be under the impression that this was something he might have prevented had only he taken the super soldier serum, which is untrue. But it prompts Bucky to tell him how strong and awesome and inspiring he is.
Did your speechwriters help you with that?
They did, yeah, the ending a little bit. Did you like it?
Fuck me, I can't believe I'm praising Brave New World. Even by comparison, it's only been a month. But at least the speechwriters it mentioned help answer the practical question of how Bucky got himself elected. Thunderbolts has to really show us the how, and it absolutely has to address the why. It's such a bizarre choice for Bucky's character that there must be a really, really good reason for it, right?
Not really, no.
The hearing has been called to consider articles of impeachment against Selina Meyer in her capacity as director of the CIA. I assume this means they invoked the 25th Amendment to get rid of President Russ, because turning into a giant red rage monster and destroying the White House because a big green scrotum almost brain-fucked you into declaring World War III against Japan, yeah, I think that would count as a disability.
And when we vote in favor of the impeachment, she will be removed from her post permanently.
Not to go all politics, nerd, but that is not what happens. If the House votes in favor, it goes to the Senate for a trial, and you then need a 2/3 majority to convict. Normally, presidents attempt to get ahead of any massively embarrassing news cycle by sending people convicted of grave crimes to be ambassador to the United Nations.
Miss Fontaine.
No, it's deFontaine. Mr. Anderson, for example, is Secretary of Defense, not Secretary of Defense.
Listen, I really like Veep, even the last season, which isn't great. I like Selina Meyer, the actual Selina Meyer.
That's like trying to use a croissant as a dildo.
I thought that...
No. Let me be more clear. It doesn't do the job, and it makes a mess!
I think Julia Louis-Dreyfus can be very funny, and I think she can actually act. But this role wastes no time turning her into a pastiche. This is how she is. This is the quality of her lines all the way through the movie, almost without fail. Everything must be glib, nothing can be serious, and there is no creative swearing.
Mal, these are defective losers. Antisocial tragedy in human form. You know, honestly, I cannot think of a worse group of people trying to work together. My God.
And you're gonna look like a hair-sprayed asshole in your 1980s Mother of the Bride dress. And if I do win, I will have my administration come to your shitty little district and shake it to death like a Guatemalan nanny. And then I'm gonna have the IRS crawl so far up your husband's colon, he's gonna wish the only thing they find is more cancer. Good God. So, can I count on your vote?
Given where this story is headed, what this means is that the pastiche, the one to stick a vague simulacrum of a popular character from another work into your script because it excuses you the onerous work of making something new for yourself, well, this very quickly begins to act against the story it's part of. It is forgivable in this first instance because being glib to congressional inquiries is precisely what they deserve, because playing to the gallery is important, because this is, after all, political theater. But it's when the same approach characterizes every single exchange with any other character, regardless of context, that things become untenable. Characters must have good reason to be unserious, and that reason can only be exposed by appropriate seriousness later. The congressional inquiry in Iron Man 2 is a pretty good example of this point.
Command, I'm not a joiner, but I'll consider Secretary of Defense, if you ask nice. We can amend the hours a little bit. Point is, you're welcome, I guess. Because I'm your nuclear deterrent. But I did you a big favor. I have successfully privatized world peace. I tried to play ball with these ass clowns. You, Mr. Stark.
That movie would not have worked to the extent that it did had Tony Stark been like this all the way through. Part of the point of that inquiry scene was to reveal his glib hubris to be short-sighted after all. But Selina Meyer in this film, well, she gets no equivalent downer. There is no contrast, she learns no lessons. This is just how she is, because this is just how she is. The committee already knows that Selina Meyer was CEO of Ox Group. She informs them that she's fully divested and now merely sits on the board in a strategic guidance capacity.
The Ox Group maintains significant holdings in unregulated labs in foreign countries, human experimentation, all part of an illegal operation to develop your own super person.
Oh, for fuck's sake, not again. Let's dispense with the technicalities first. The CIA director requires Senate confirmation before they take up their post. So all of this would already have been litigated at some length from the minute she was nominated. Thunderbolts views this as a very useful scene in which to exposit a very significant part of its premise. But the potential it sees in the scene is that it's a quick and lazy way to impart A-plot information, rather than an intriguing way to impart both A-plot information and world-building information. The sequence of events was already a bit janky in Brave New World, where we were specifically told that President Ross had been in office for coming on 100 days, while Bucky Barnes was running for a congressional seat. Thunderbolts never clearly establishes how far along it is in relation to that film, except to say that that film is definitely in the past.
Last president turned into a bright red superhuman monster who nearly destroyed this city.
And this presents us with two options. Either Bucky was running in the midterms, placing us a year to a year and a half after Brave New World, or we've since had a general election, meaning the movie is set around 4.5 years after Brave New World. You could run with either premise and rework this scene to tell us more about the world than it does. If either the midterms or the general election after Brave New World saw President Ross's party punished for picking an angry hemorrhoid monster to contest the last election, that could explain why a House committee might now be impeaching Selina Meyer over information the Senate in the last session would have already litigated during the confirmation hearings, because that's how congressional committees work. Party control matters a great deal. Brave New World had Captain Vulcan tell us that the country was a mess. He said it needed the symbol of Captain America standing side by side with the president. After he said that, World War III almost broke out over adamantium, and all that was just a couple of years after a group of armed super soldiers attempted to murder the United Nations. This is an incredibly tumultuous time. There's a new president now. The world has profoundly changed. The discovery of adamantium was the excuse they concocted for calling that movie Brave New World. It's not unreasonable to expect that the next MCU movie might address that in some way. It's actually quite important that we do address it, given what we'll later learn about Selina Meyer's plans and how she attempts to justify them. You could work all this additional information into a few lines of dialogue, some mise-en-scène work, protesters outside Capitol Hill, placards, chants, news reports in the background, relevant questions from those journalists earlier. Reviewers on YouTube should not be more interested in the world being built than the people building it are, for fuck's sake. But the thing is, you see, we already know that the people building it are not interested, and we already know they don't want or expect us to be either. The committee chair's dismissive super persons tells us everything we need to know, and none of it's good. We're doing super soldiers again. We just got done learning that you can turn people into Hulks with little pills, but no, we're back to super soldiers. A committee chair treats this as a vague, almost unserious, or at any rate hard to grasp thing, while there is an elected fucking super soldier sitting in the audience opposite him. And as though we're not just a couple of years out from a group of terrorist super soldiers attempting to blow up the UN, as though super serum proliferation isn't something they should be hyper aware and hyper scared of, for fuck's sake. This, anyway, is Selina Meyer's pitch. Having just been accused of running a company that conducts illegal human experiments, a suggestion she has to refute because otherwise she will lose her job, her response is, well, I don't have time for your nonsense because there are hostile foreign nations and other dangerous super people, so we need some of our own. But also, no, I am totally innocent of the charges and have nothing to do with it.
First of all, I don't have time to entertain these rumors and this gossip. The Avengers are not walking through that door. That is why the onus is on me to shield its citizens. And you know, anything I have done in my roles at Ops or at the CIA has been done with that goal in mind.
God, here's another way you could work in something like this into a serious movie. You could save this beat for later. She could orchestrate events throughout the movie, she could get impeached towards the end of the movie, she could be successfully removed from her post, but she could take this, essentially demagogic appeal, directly to the people. She could get herself elected at the end, either as the next president, if we're setting this movie in a chaotic interregnum immediately following Brave New World, or as the next president's Veep. It's not spoiling much to say that this movie ends with her remaining in her post. She is not in fact convicted, so we're not desperately looking for an excuse to get rid of her. We can keep her around, but if we're going to keep her around, why don't we build her into something? Why don't we make her desperate times call for desperate measures pitch a vital part of this movie's theme, its plot, and its world building at the same time? Take everything you've set up previously, everything you set up in that movie that came out last fucking month, and use it, rather than mixing it into liquid shit and throwing it in front of a fan and calling it writing. This should be her triumphant final scene, her populist pitch, her grab for power. The moment she turns people's want for security against the institutions set up to ensure their liberty. This could have been really interesting, but it doesn't work at the beginning of the movie when the premise is that she is simultaneously denying she's done all of these things.
I officially reject these articles of impeachment.
But you don't. You just very publicly didn't do that.
So you don't mind if this committee continues
this investigation.
Of course not.
But you began by saying you don't have time for this shit because the world's in danger and it's a partisan waste of time. Can we please keep track of our dialogue for one fucking line? After the meeting, the supposedly clever and competent deep state operative Selina Meyer is in a right panic, and she tells her assistant, whose name is Mel, to make sure that anything and everything that could get her impeached is cleaned up. You were conducting illegal experiments on humans. I thought the point of illegal experiments is that they were supposed to be secret. Mel tells her most of the loose ends have already been tied up, but one of her agents has not yet reported back, which is our cue to rejoin Yelena, who has gone to visit Red Guardian. As you know, thanks to my painstaking homework session at the top, Red Guardian is Yelena's adopted father, and one of the major character beats in the Black Widow movie was them reuniting. There is an entire scene where he, Nat, Yelena, and Melina Vostokov, not appearing in this movie, reminisce about their past life. The mini arc present in that scene is that their cozy, happy family life was revealed to have been a deep cover operation, and this news really hurts Yelena.
Please don't say that. It was real. It was real to me. You are my mother.
It's followed by a scene where Red Guardian softens up, stops goofing around, and reveals that it was, after a fashion, real to him as well.
The music died, and they were singing, "Bye, Miss America, bye." Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry.
This is important, and it's one of the very few scenes in that movie that gets anywhere near to being acceptable. Acceptable is now a lofty aspiration for the MCU, so in a bid to reach those heights again, Thunderbolts is going to pretend that that scene never occurred in order that it can basically do the same thing again. So Yelena comes for a visit. We learn that she hasn't seen her adopted father for more than a year. We are reminded that Red Guardian is a super soldier. Red Guardian was instrumental in taking down the Red Room. Red Guardian and Yelena have had their family reunited arc, and yet we pick up in this movie with him back to being a drunk, washed-up goof who owns a cheap limo driving business. Why? Why must we take 2 steps backwards so this film can drunkenly stumble 1 step forward again? We could be developing characters, not just, fuck it. Yelena asks him if he feels fulfilled, because this film deftly handles mental health. And he says yes, he feels so full, so filled. He asks her why she's here, and she says she's come to talk to him about Selina Meyer.
An assignment, come to Red Guardian, or help.
No, I think I'm gonna quit.
She manipulated you by lying about the circumstances of your sister's death. Why are you working for her in the first place? Also, if you haven't seen You're Not Quite Dad But Close Enough for a year, why have you come to talk to him about it now? Also, given he's a super soldier and she's interested in super soldiers and she's trying to make new super soldiers and she has a whole team of superpowered agents, why isn't he working for her? Also, if he isn't working for her, and he's not, then why did Yelena come here to speak to him about leaving employment with Selina Meyer? The premise is that he has nothing to do with her, and evidently Yelena has had no need of his advice until this moment, so what gives, movie? Why is she here? Why is any of this happening?
I would burn the city to the ground to work for her.
You just said you were fulfilled.
Lena, I was lying. Look around. I'm miserable.
Again, why do you not already work for her? Fucking everybody else does.
Lena, what is wrong? The light inside you is dimming based on European standards.
Oof, such deftness in this handling of mental health. I'm blown away.
I've just been wondering, what is the point in any of this?
I've been asking this since Multiverse of Madness, but I get the sense you means something else. Yelena says she wants to know when Red Guardian was really happy, and he says that he was happiest serving his country and being a hero. Once again, we pretend that Black Widow never happened.
Her sister understood something about that. Perhaps it is time that you followed in her path.
Ah yes, Natasha Romanoff, who famously found happiness publicly serving her country and being held up as an idol in front of crowds. No, you fucking clown character, Nat found meaning in family. You reunited with her in Black Widow while she was on the run from her country. I know she's dead, but that's really not an excuse for you to just start making shit up. If you ignore the fact that this movie is ignoring everything that came before it, there is a little bit of setup happening here that's not completely terrible.
What is the point in any of this?
You want to know when I was really good?
Yes, please.
When I was serving my country as a hero, saving civilians in the streets, being cheered on by the crowd, adored like a god. Never end. There is no higher calling.
This is important because it establishes essentially his win conditions. Red Guardian has fallen from grace, but he has a concept of grace. He will ascend to grace later, which has all been pre-established with his invocation of heroic imagery here. It's what he wants, he will do something to earn it, he will be given it, he will deserve it. So that's something. He also has a framed photo of Yelena's childhood soccer team, which will be important for what this movie considers her characterization later. Red Guardian then asks her to put in a word for him with Selina Meyer on the very solid grounds that he is an actual super soldier and she might want to hire him. This is true, and she should have hired him already, but didn't for unaccountable reasons. Yelena does call Selina Meyer, but not to get her dad a job. No, she says she'll do one more mission, but then she wants to make a change. She wants a more public-facing role, you know, like Nat had, in that one very specific moment where she had to reveal herself and her past crimes to the Senate in order to expose Hydra before she went back to rebuilding her cover and acting covertly again, which she quite specifically said would require spending time off-grid. Fuck me, that wasn't even in Black Widow, that was in The Winter Soldier. Everyone's supposed to like that movie. There's really no excuse for fucking all this up, and yet they keep doing it. Selina Meyer says, sure, I love promoting women, and no, I didn't make that up. That's her line. I thought they'd made DEI illegal, but I guess it hasn't filtered into the MCU yet. She promises Yelena that if she does one last assignment for Ox, she will promote her. And it's at this point that Yelena should really be very suspicious if she were a character with a measurable IQ. She's been sent on secret missions to destroy evidence for an evil company because a woman she knows is an evil manipulative shitbag is trying to cover evidence of her crimes before a very public impeachment hearing discovers what she's been up to. But it means I must reiterate, Yelena was trained in the Red Room. Yelena's life is spycraft. She's been brought up to be not in precisely this kind of situation, in precisely this kind of world. She is evidence. She is evidence of the things she has been trying to cover up. And she should be joining the dots already. But because the movie has been too busy deftly handling mental health, it's not taken the time to make Yelena curious about anything she's involved in. She has mental health, but she doesn't really have a brain. The movie's only plausible excuse for her taking no interest at all in anything she's been doing is that she's existentially bored, and that's a shit excuse. Oh god, it actually gets worse because she's already got all the leverage she needs for the promotion she wants, because she's the one who's been doing the cover-up. The impeachment hearings are very public. Everybody should know about them. Just give Selina Meyer a call and say, hey, look, I know things you don't want getting out, and I'll keep them a secret so long as you promote me. Otherwise, things might accidentally get leaked to that hearing, and that would just be terribly inconvenient for everyone. everyone. And oh fuck me, no, it actually gets worse. Red Guardians convinced her she should take up a patriotic public role like he thinks Nat did in some version of the MCU that only exists in these writers' heads. Yelena's been working all along for someone being investigated by the US government. She knows she's trying to hide the secrets of somebody working against the US government. If she actually wants a patriotic, public-facing, heroic role, all she has to do is blow the goddamn whistle. You know, the thing Nat actually did. But fuck it, no, we can't be doing that. It's time for the mission briefing. There is a remote facility that is definitely not a trap. I've received intel, I know you won't ask from where, that someone is going to try and steal all our most valuable assets for reasons I know you're not interested in. Please go to this remote facility that is definitely not a trap. Follow this thief you're not interested in. Ascertain what she's trying to steal, even though I've just told you what's there, so I should really know, and the fact that I pretend that I don't is really suspicious. And once you've done that, you can kill the thief. I cannot stress enough that this is definitely, indisputably, 100%, cross my heart and hope to die, not a trap. So naturally, Yelena says yes, and off we go to the facility that is most definitely a trap. Yelena continues to act as though she wasn't trained in the Red Room and just walks right out into the open despite not having eyes on her target. Having taken no interest whatsoever in any of her previous missions, she decides now might be the time for some light reading, and handily, a bunch of plot-relevant documents have just been left lying around ready for her to find them. And despite this going against everything we've been told about her so far, about how bored and disinterested she is in her job, she knows a plot-relevant document when she sees one, so she has a look through them. They contain records of human experiments, photographs of a mysterious shadow, photographs of body bags, designs for blonde wigs, and these clearly being plot relevant, she pockets them for later. No sooner has she done so than she gets shot at by Johnny Walker, who has appeared from somewhere. And this means that she must surely be dead, because not only does he have a shield again, and not only does he have a gun, he's a fucking super soldier. I said he's a super soldier. Movie, he's a fucking super soldier.
You're lying on my target.
You're lying.
Oh my goodness, it was a trap. And also, movie, he's a fucking super soldier. Oh, and speaking of...
I'm not here for you.
Now, granted, Task Manager isn't the same type of super soldier. Task Manager just has that magic chip in her brain that lets her fight like a super soldier, that lets her fight like anyone whose videos she's been watching recently. I think it's fair to say she was a little bit underdeveloped in Black Widow, and a bit of an unusual choice, therefore, to appear in Thunderbolts, but that must mean they have some plan for her. Oh, that's well, I mean that's kind of it. She's actually dead. But you know, we've got a ghost in the movie now, so that's something.
So this is what we got as what was supposed to happen with her character. Here's a summary of the entirety of Taskmaster's role in the original version. Antonia shows up in the Ox Corpse or whatever vault, level 5, sent by Val to kill John Walker. She recognizes Yelena from the Red Room days and fights like a machine, using her mimicry and reflexes to dodge and strike. Team realizes Val's playing them. When they're trapped in the incinerator, Antonia's confusion hints at a deeper issue with her. She opens up about her past, an explosion at 9 that messed up her brain, caused by Black Widow, leaving her with patchy memory after years of lab experiments, which is her history that I don't think they just don't care anymore. Snaps at Walker for being a jerk about it.
Wow.
Of course, yeah.
Of course he would be a jerk about it.
This vulnerability bonds her with Yelena and Ghost, who get her pain. Ava makes a video for Antonia to explain things every time she feels lost, or brain fries, I guess. She saves the day by spotting the sonic barrier's power source and stabbing it with her sword, letting Ava phase out to free them. Yeah, it's not, you know, it's just like, oh, okay. Explosion, she's glitching and attacks Walker again until her memory gets jogged. In the elevator shaft, she escapes, shares with them, shares her history, her dad's accident, the lab life, Val's false...
Skittles part.
They mentioned this a couple of times in this. I don't know what the. Yeah, they all share Skittles. They keep saying this.
They all share Skittles. Bonding moment.
Sorry. Yes, Val's false promise to fix her if she does work for her. She connects with Ava over shared trauma on the roof of the anchors a helicopter with a grappling arrow. It's all like action stuff, you know. And Bucky ambushes them. Antonia's memory flickers. She recalls punching Walker. Funny scene.
Funny scene.
She's the only one who's able to get free and kicks Bucky's ass in a fight.
I don't see how that's possible.
He's a super soldier. He's got the metal.
Like, even if she tries to mimic him, like, what's she gonna do?
Not how it works.
Get the fuck out of her.
Impressed with the mimic abilities until he outsmarts her. His story of Val's control softens Bucky, releases the others and joins the plan, but not before they take a breather and share some Skittles. Bonding moment.
Yes, Skittles. Oh, they're like M&Ms, but worse. Obviously worse.
At the airfield, Antonia backs Yelena's call to save Walker and Bob after they were taken by Val, seeing them as part of the team. She storms Avengers Tower, tearing through the guards and tells Walker he belongs, hitting him hard emotionally. They share Skittles. Getting ridiculous.
Okay.
In the showdown at the penthouse, Antonia nearly kills Val, but stops short when Sentry Bob arrives. She's shocked, but fights hard, teaming with Ava. Sentry wipes them out. She tosses her weapon, sways Sentry, helps spark his doubt about Val's orders. He doesn't listen. He escapes with the team. Rest of it pretty much the same as it was in the film, but Taskmaster involved. So, oh yeah, the fucking movie ends with them sharing Skittles. Yeah, bonding moment.
Yeah, more Skittles.
So, like...
as much as you look at that and go like, huh, what? You still look at it and go, why'd you decide not to go in this direction? Why did you decide to kill her? It's a bit hard to make sense of because this is like a story. It probably wouldn't have been a good one. Even reading it doesn't look like a particularly good one, but like this is a story where the character is being utilized, and instead she shows up for 1 minute, says one line, and gets like shot in the head.
Anyway, now it's time for the fighting to stop, so a man crawls out of a box. This man's name is Bob. His name is Bob. He's in a movie. Does that mean he's Movie Bob?
No, you didn't create it. You only trained it and armed it. And so they've turned your secondhand rifles on feminism, on minority voices, on independent developers, on socially conscious game journalists, innocent people who've committed no crime save for trying to elevate this medium and the discussion, all of which might have been averted had you and yours not chosen to also stop building after you'd stopped fighting.
And then, shock horror, who could possibly have seen it coming? All the blast doors closed because this was definitely, obviously, right from the beginning, a trap. Now I'm going to share with you what I thought I was watching until this moment, because it makes more sense than what we were actually watching. We just haven't fully realized the nonsense of it yet. I knew this was a trap right from the beginning because that was blindingly obvious, but I thought they were being trapped into a test. Because being very silly as I sometimes am, I vaguely remembered Selina Meyer being a little bit competent in her past appearances. She's a strategist and a manipulator. It's two of the three things we really know about her. The third thing we know about her is that she's got an interest in super soldiers and in creating something to replace the Avengers. So, here's a bunch of super people she has recruited separately. She's been sending them on various missions, which could be construed as tests, and now she's trapped them in a room that'll require all their combined skills to escape. So, stupidly, I thought this was all part of her stress testing her new Avengers team. The trap and the inevitable escape was all part of the plan. So as you can imagine, I was very surprised and delighted to learn that I was completely wrong. Selina Meyer isn't a highly competent deep state manipulator creating the Dark Avengers or whatever the fuck. She is, in fact, but we'll deal with that presently. First up, we hop away from the trap and to a swanky party for vague high society types, put on by Selina Meyer. The head of the impeachment committee is here, which I'm sure violates some sort of ethics protocol. Bet they'll never get around to investigating it. That makes it the most believable depiction of real-world politics anywhere in the MCU. The committee chair accuses Selina Meyer of putting on the swanky party in a bid to sway votes. See above. This is Democracy Manifest.
You're scared because your investigation of my office came up clean.
Squeaky clean. Almost like someone had frantically gotten rid of all the evidence.
Yeah, this sentence doesn't work. The thing about investigations returning squeaky clean results is that they do not turn up evidence of someone frantically hiding evidence. That would be a very much not squeaky clean result. That would be a dirty, stained result.
Oh, great.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that, in a competent film, would do quite a lot of damage to the impeachment committee. In the thick of it, Armando Iannucci's British precursor to Veep, featuring the best Doctor Who of them all, Malcolm Tucker.
I'm sorry, can you stop swearing, please? Okay, I'm really sorry, you won't hear any more swearing from us, you massive gay shit! Fuck off!
Well, that actually has a plot beat featuring a photo op manufactured precisely in order to influence the results of an inquiry, which I mention because, since we are focusing a little bit on this impeachment inquiry, it might have been nice if they'd used it to show how competent characters navigate the internal and external politics of the thing, rather than supposedly clever and skillful people being dumb and silly and reactive. They could have been, you know, clever and skillful. Anyway, speaking of dumb and silly, Bucky Barnes is also here, and he goes for a chat with Mel. Remember Mel? Don't blame you if you've forgotten her already. She's Selina Meyer's assistant. She's a pretty shit assistant. She's definitely no Gary, I can tell you that much.
I know who you are and what you're doing.
What am I doing?
You're working. You're trying to get me on your side.
This is true, though quite how she knows it's true is unclear. Bucky is indeed working secretly with the head of the impeachment committee, which puts us in a thoroughly bizarre position. The freshman congressman who isn't on the impeachment committee, who we've seen being terrible with journalists, who's given no indication that he's any good at this job, never mind why he got this job to begin with, well, he's suddenly showing more political guile than the woman whose whole thing is supposed to be her political guile. And how did this arrangement ever come to be in the first place? Bucky's never previously interacted with, nor shown any interest in, nor even any awareness of Selina Meyer. What's his interest here? If it wasn't originally his idea, why would he have been chosen to be the one to lean on Mel, given he should really be the most conspicuous man in Congress and the one with the most damaging backstory that could easily be used against him? Why, Delilah, does none of this make any fucking sense? Mel says she has to get back to Selina, but Bucky gives her a business card in case she wants to turn snitch later. And then we hop back to the trap, where the discount Avengers are interrogating Bob, from whom they learn that he is indeed called Bob, and that unlike them, he wasn't sent here.
I'm not sure what's happening here, but you're all exhausting and my job is done.
Oh, you're exhausted, are you? Already? But you've only just got here. There's plenty more of this to come.
You see, my job is to keep an eye on you, so no, you are not gonna go anywhere anymore.
No. Your job was to kill her once you'd found out what she was stealing. And by now, you should know that this was all a setup, so carrying on with that job really shouldn't be on top of your agenda. Here's an idea. Since you know everyone's been sent here, and you've heard most of the people here say they were sent here to kill one of the other people here, why don't you just confirm that this is the case, like a rational, intelligent person, and conclude that you've all been set up? Why are we wasting this time bickering?
That's a halfway decent cover for somebody stealing assets from Ox.
I'm not stealing, she's stealing. Okay.
Ah, there you go.
All of this stuff is Ox's secrets, but so are we.
Yes, exactly. Just like I said some time ago, before you even got here, because it was fucking obvious. God damn it, if I'd gone through the Red Room, I'd be unstoppable. Although now I get to thinking about it. But no, that couldn't be.
Well, look at the facts. The infamous Ghost, SHIELD reject on the run to the 15 nations. You, former Red Room assassin, God only knows the blood on your hands.
How do you know all of this?
That footage is highly classified.
It was classified.
until somebody on your staff clicked on Asian girls bound and gagged.
You didn't know that all of these people would end up here, because the whole point is you've all been set up. You were each given just one target to lure you here. I get that we can't expect the audience to remember Ant-Man and the fucking Wasp, but was this really the best excuse for exposition you could come up with?
It's ludicrous coming from the dime store Captain America.
I'll have you know I was actually the official Captain America, so...
Yeah, for like 2 seconds before you publicly murdered an innocent man in the streets. Do I have that right?
No, you don't have that right. He publicly murdered a terrorist in the street because terrorists just killed his best friend. And it's also quite discouraging that we're already portraying him as salty over his loss of status, because once again, that is an arc we've already had. We're going to somehow end up defending the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Black Widow, aren't we? That's what it's come to. Jesus fucking Christ. Johnny Walker explains that Selina Meyer gave him, and I quote, a clean slate guarantee if he completes this mission, whatever it is. I don't think she's able to undo a dishonorable discharge resulting from a military tribunal, but fuck it, what do I know? Bob, though, wasn't part of his mission, so he asks him how he got in, and Bob says he doesn't know. Bob has amnesia, you see. Selective amnesia. And the people who put him here are disabled. Not selectively disabled, generally disabled. Walker demands the others tie themselves up, which obviously they aren't going to do, so Ghost phase shifts and she tries to leave the room, only for this facility's bizarrely specific anti-ghost sonic countermeasures to kick in automatically, so they're trapped. Back at the party, Bucky has a chat with the impeachment committee head.
We don't need to go rogue in the darkness or whatever you people do.
Hold on, you don't know what Val is capable of.
While we're on that subject, how do you know what she's capable of? You've never met her. I have no idea why you're here, and I don't think the movie does either. But if you do know what she's capable of, maybe you shouldn't be trying to turn her PA in the middle of her party. This seems like something a competent bad guy might have planned for, and you just implied that she is highly competent. Congressman Nobles tells him there's no need for him to go rogue, and he gives 2 contradictory reasons why.
But I'm a smoking gun. The best chance to get Val out of power is to whip the votes.
But Bucky's trying to get you a smoking gun. You could have one.
My team is putting together a juicy pack for the next hearing.
So to be clear, the argument is we don't need evidence, we just need to whip the votes. And also we will whip the votes with this evidence we've got, so we're fine. That's an interesting suggestion because a couple of minutes ago he said,
Your investigation of my office came up clean.
Squeaky clean. Almost like someone had frantically gotten rid of all the evidence.
So you have no evidence, but you'll be able to whip the votes with the evidence that you have. Rightio then, 2 diametrically opposing arguments at once. I can see why you're in Congress. He tells Bucky to read the packet with all the evidence he doesn't have in it, even though the one thing we actually know about Bucky's role in Congress is that he isn't on the impeachment committee, so why would he be given this packet? Now you might be thinking, oh, I see where this is going. The group that will shortly be called the Thunderbolts is the evidence. We know they're the evidence because Yelena told us they're the evidence. Bucky believes that evidence is the only thing that will take down Selina Meyer, so Bucky will unite with the soon-to-be Thunderbolts and get them to this impeachment hearing while Selina Meyer tries to stop him. Well, yeah, that would make a degree of sense, but as is invariably the case with Marvel movies these days, stop it. Thinking is bad for you. You've got to take care of your mental health. If there's one thing likely to damage your mental health, it's thinking. So while yes, I know the movie has spent ages setting up this impeachment committee, and it seems like it should be important, it really isn't. In fact, we're basically done with it after this scene. It'll get maybe one more mention later, but it will serve no further role in the plot, and none of our characters will ever intersect with it. Which leaves you wondering, what's the fucking point then? Bucky in this scene expresses grave misgivings about the system.
And then let the system do its job. The system.
that goes on recess every day at 4 p.m.
If we wanted to justify his lack of faith in the system, and to have that prompt his return to being a super secret agent, and if we wanted this to be in any way relevant to the plot of the movie, then having him warning a disinterested congressman about the dangers posed by Selina Meyer would have been a better way to go about it, though we would still have to account for how he found out about her, and really on that, I have no idea. The movie just gives us nothing to work with. Anyway, now it's time for more things to go catastrophically wrong, because, you know, we're so back. This is the point at which any pretense that Selina Meyer might be a competent villain worth taking seriously explodes. And it's the scene that proved me wrong, because, as it turns out, I overestimated the movie. Yeah, it happens from time to time because, you know, foolishly, I'd still like for these films to be good, and occasionally even I get thrown into wish fulfillment fantasies. Mel approaches Selina Meyer and tells her that all of her guests are now in attendance. All of her guests plus Bob, and they don't know who Bob is either, confirming that he is no part of any plan they have concocted. But it doesn't matter, because the plan they have concocted is that they will kill everyone in the facility. They have an iPad, and the iPad has an app on it that will kill everybody in the facility, and Val presses the kill everyone in the facility button. Back in the facility, this activates a timer in the room. The timer is displayed to the people in the room. The timer is counting down from 2 minutes. At the end of those 2 minutes, giant incinerators will burn everything in the facility. But oh dear, who could possibly have foreseen that the people in the room might notice the timer that's been placed there for their benefit? Who could have foreseen that this might encourage them to try and escape before the timer runs out? If only the super competent villain that we were just told was competent and dangerous had done something competent and dangerous, like rig the place to blow, well then her plan would have succeeded. But the evil countdown timer unforeseeably gives the game away. Aha, but you see, they are still trapped in that room, remember? They can't escape because the sonic weapon will stop them.
We need to get you through the walls so that you can open the door.
She tried that already.
We haven't tried shutting down the sound barrier.
They built it just for her. It's gotta be an independent power source.
I don't think that follows at all. Why wouldn't the sonic weapon be plugged into the mains like everything else? And even if it's not plugged into the mains, even if it does have an independent power source, there's absolutely no way the power source for a device that's designed to trap people in a room would be located in the room it's supposed to trap them in, because that would just be...
Yeah, I'm gonna go ride this.
Oh, go fuck yourself. Sonic device disabled, Ghost leaves. The rest of them wait an obligatory tension-building interval. Yelena makes a face.
I thought it was not coherent with the story that they're telling, that her reaction to near-death seemed to be that of apprehension and a bit of fear. No, I'm saying it should have been that. In fact, it should be apathetic. It should be just like, oh, this is it, I guess. But instead, it comes across as though she's like actually anxious, watching the door, waiting for it to open, and then coming to realize like, oh fuck, I guess this is it, sort of thing. When it's like, isn't the story supposed to be that she's suicidal? You know, especially the opening visual, and then what she does with the void later. Definitely playing with those elements. So I would have thought to not necessarily foreshadow, but to certainly imply that, and you'd have that noted too, that maybe Walker's panicking, so is Ghost, and then later Walker can be like, why didn't you, like, you didn't seem to like even care that we were about to be burned to death.
Yeah, what, do you want to die in there?
Yeah, just something simple like that. But she comes across, at least, and the camera's focusing on her, that she's very much... And they could play into that too, that she could have said that experience made her realize that she's actually not at all looking to die, and she must have something meaningful left, sort of thing.
This will be like it'll be like the Frowning Friends guy when he gets a gun pointed at him.
But then Ghost does open the door and they all pile out just before the incinerators set fire to the room. Now, I'm not an expert forensic scientist, but I think having a giant incinerator burning all of the contents of a room might count as evidence that the Ox group has been, you know, burning all the evidence in the room. And if they've seen that you've burnt all the evidence in the room, you'd better hope they don't ask you for your CCTV records, because that would show all of the evidence you've just destroyed. But oh well, I'm sure it won't come up again. In the resulting explosion, Yelena gets knocked out and into a dream sequence that flashes back to her first mission for the Red Room. She's led a girl called Anya out into the woods. A man turns up and shoots little Anya, and he tells little Yelena that she has completed her first test. Adult Yelena, who is present in this dream sequence, looks up, and Bob is standing right in front of her, inside her dream. Then she wakes up in the real world and finds that her hand is touching Bob's. How very mysterious. I mean this sort of genuinely, because these dream sequences, this is the first, there are more to follow, they do form an important plank in one of the movie's grand total of 2 serviceable ideas. There'll be much more to say on this topic later, but for now, we have the following information. Selina Meyer had something called Project Sentry. The super secret facility had designs for some sort of super person, which Ox has been trying to create. Project Sentry was not what Selina Meyer thought it was. Bob has turned up unaccounted for in a room full of evidence scheduled for burning. Bob has the power to enter people's dreams when they touch him, from which it is reasonable to conclude Bob is Project Sentry. He is Sentry Bob. This is functional if you don't ask how Bob ended up in that basement to begin with, because when we learned how that occurred, he was basically thrown in the trash because Ox thought he was a failed experiment. Well, then it becomes really quite broken. You'll recall that among the plot-relevant documents Yelena pocketed, despite having no interest in anything to do with this mission because that's her entire character at this moment, we saw pictures of body bags. Those told us what Ox did with its failed experiments. Ox did not put dead failed experiments in high-tech sarcophagi, it put them in body bags and disposed of them. The movie tries to have it that Bob was sent to this basement by accident, but we already know that can't be true, because the Ox scientist at the beginning knew what Bob really was. It's what he meant when he said Project Sentry isn't what she thought it is. And that means, as discussed, that Selina Meyer should know what he really is. Here again is an easy fix that keeps the basic beats in play while restoring at least a bit of competence to the people involved. Why not have Ox know exactly what Bob was and put him in this basement deliberately? Selina Meyer could send her various agents to the basement as a kind of test, not of them, but of Bob's capabilities. In this version of the movie, the thing she didn't predict is that Bob would strike up a friendship with this bunch of murderous rogues, and they would end up working together to escape. Alternatively, if we want her to be even more competent than that, this was all part of her plan to build a team led by Bob, and challenging them to work with him and to work together to escape this facility was all part of a test. You could still have Bob go bad later, maybe when it's revealed to him that the friendships he's forged were all part of Selina Meyer's manipulation, making them depressingly fake. But either of these versions of the movie would make Selina Meyer both intelligent and proactive, rather than the idiotic and reactive character we're actually getting. I do want to stress, this is all an interesting concept, and we will get more of it later, but the movie really struggles to turn it into anything concrete, largely because no one is in command.
You okay?
Yeah. I mean, that's probably not the first question I'd ask of a guy I'd just seen pop up in one of my most private dreams.
Hey, didn't think you'd come back, thanks. I had to, someone cut the house in the elevator.
And there's the formula again. Very brief dalliance with some serious story, immediately followed by joke. Speaking of jokes, back in Civilization, Selina Meyer and Mel are riding in a limo and Mel gives an update. It appears the proto-Thundertards have escaped the trap.
Is it possible that they've maybe, joined forces against you?
I don't even know what you just said.
Mal.
What are you laughing about, jolly green face?
These are defective losers.
antisocial tragedy in human form. You know, honestly, I cannot think of a worse group of people trying to work together.
Once again, I lament that they have imported Selina Meyer's character skin and hired none of the writers. She's like a Fortnite version of the character, just making dumb noises and dumb movements because some fucking idiot somewhere thought it would be popular. Mel pulls up a CCTV image that shows them Bob, and neither of them recognize him. Selina Meyer tells Mel to get an ID on him and also to contact somebody called Holt to give him the coordinates to the super secret facility and to have him assemble a strike team. And then the camera pans around to reveal that the man driving the limo is Red Guardian?
To just make it clear for you, this matters a lot. So, Val is the director of the CIA. Alexei is a known Soviet super soldier. He decided he wanted to become a limo driver. He managed to get to drive the limo of the director of the CIA and just happens to be doing that on the day that all of this is happening, that Yelena, who happens to also work for Val, is like in peril now. He just happens to be there to receive this information when there's no way that that would ever happen.
It is like the CIA leader has ordered an Uber away from a party. It's like that kind of, that's not gonna happen.
But he knows, and particularly that the limo driver is again a known Soviet super soldier.
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah, he's got his own advertising.
This is how your CIA directors get captured or shot in the back of the head, by the way, if a secret Soviet super soldier ends up driving their limo. Generally a scenario you'd like to avoid.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Anyway, it's worth noting that both Selina Meyer and Mel get out of the limo together, and neither of them speak the coordinates out loud, which I mention here because, obviously, this will be completely fucked later. Back in the facility, the movie continues not to understand who John Walker actually is in order that it can try and make us hate him some more. He interrogates Bob, who says he genuinely doesn't know how he got here. The last thing he remembers is getting his blood drawn for some medical trial.
I think he's just a civilian.
If he's a civilian, he knows too much. If he's an agent, he sucks. Either way, so we throw him back in the fire.
This is where I remind the movie because it seems to have forgotten that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier dealt with this, and John Walker emerged on the other side of the arc this movie is trying to send him on. In the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, once John Walker kills the terrorist who murdered his friend, and then gets attacked by the heroes, Captain Falcon and Bucky, who break his arm and take his shield because bullying and thievery is what heroes do, Walker takes the super soldier serum and he makes his own shield. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier thought it was depicting a man consumed by his ego and his bitterness, even though what it really showed was a man committed to doing the right thing no matter what it cost him personally. Because this is what villains do. In the final episode of that abysmal show, John Walker is then presented with a choice. He could go after the genocidal super terrorist Freckle Jesus, or he could sacrifice his vengeance to save a bunch of worthless politicians before their van plunged off a bridge and killed them all. And he sacrificed his vengeance and his homespun shield to do the right thing. Because even granting that he wasn't already a hero by that point, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier thought that this was the moment he could become one, after a fashion. Even when Selina Meyer recruits him, this is done by an appeal to his heroism. Her pitch is not, join me and we can do evil shit together because you hate the world. No, it's, your country might not thank you for it, but I have a way you can still serve your country. And this is what appeals to John Walker, because he is a hero. He accepts her offer because he wants to do good irrespective of the reward that will come his way. But now, somehow, we've gone from him sacrificing vengeance and personal fulfillment to save civilians, to him threatening to sacrifice a civilian because he's an egotistical dick again. Fucking why bring back skin suits if you're not going to bring back the characters who wore them? This is not the first time Thunderbolts has proceeded as if it is a soft reboot, and it won't be the last time it does this either. And each time it does this, it assassinates one of its characters. John Walker is only the most brutalized of all the characters brutalized by these writers. So Bob laughs and says, for a guy who was Captain America, Johnny Walker sure is an asshole, and because we're still in the process of murdering John Walker, he gets angry and pushes Bob against a wall. Those are some nice Sith eyes you've got going on there, Bob. John Walker's clearly seen them. Everyone was supposed to be interested in who Bob is and how he got here, so you think this might provoke some comment.
We swung our tiny dicks. It was a lot of fun. You go over there. Bob, come with me.
Oh, or not. No, I guess it's like, it's not time for us to know what Bob is yet. We just have to pretend like nobody noticed the Sith eyes, even though John Walker was looking right at them. Instead, it's time for the film to deftly handle mental health. So Yelena pulls Bob aside and they have a chat about how they're feeling. This is a very important scene because the movie is going to lean heavily on the relationship between Bob and Yelena in particular. Unfortunately, this is pretty much the last scene they get in which to build that relationship, which is why, though having characters actually possess feelings is a remarkable feat for a modern MCU movie, the scene is a little out of place, and the dialogue itself has to shoulder too great a burden for the time allotted to it, which means it basically has to fast forward to Bob telling us that he wants to kill himself. He says it would be better if they just left him behind, in order that Yelena can have the shock of recognition.
Well, you guys should just go without me. It'll be easier. Oh no, you'll die down here. Yeah, well, whatever. I think everyone's better off if I just say goodbye. Okay, I understand. We all feel like shit sometimes. And loneliness, I get that. I get it. And then it starts to feel a little bit like a void. Yeah, a void.
The use of the word void is both a callback and a bit of foreshadowing, and to be clear, I think the writers are doing the best they can within the structure they've either built or been given. We do have basic setup and payoff in play. The topic is obviously the thematic through line, so it is clearly connected to prior and subsequent events, and the scene is pretty well performed, because by some accident of poor planning, the best actors currently working in the MCU have pretty much all been given pointless Disney Plus miniseries characters to play. But if you've ever had depression, or if you're bipolar, and the movie plays fast and loose with the distinction, what you'll take away from this scene is that the movie is gesturing at the concepts, but it doesn't have time to properly explore them. In particular, you'll probably note that merely having one character reveal they are borderline suicidal, and then having another character think, hey, maybe we've got that in common for some reason, well, that's not a fully formed relationship, is it? That's potential grounds for a relationship to develop, though the sad fact is that a relationship formed on shared misery is not a guaranteed cure for that misery. It can even compound it. But we're going to need quite a bit more work before we get to the mutual salvation stage. What we've done is establish a point of commonality. What we need is for them to go on a journey, but they are about to be split up and they won't reunite until the final few minutes of the film. So we're not going to get that. Instead, it's time for another funny scene.
You have done therapy yet? I think I found a way out.
No you haven't. They cut power to the elevator, remember? Ghost told you that quite explicitly. Honestly, there's something about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Everyone in it just carries around this amnesia debuff.
Mel, hi.
And it's the wrong question to ask. I'm pretty sure, and I didn't rewatch Wakanda Forever before this because I don't hate myself that much, but I'm pretty sure there's a beat in that movie. Doesn't Val use Bilbo because she was married to Bilbo? She manipulates him to track down the Wakandans, and I'm sure she tracks one of the Wakandan anal beads that he uses to communicate with them in order to understand what's going on, because in that movie, she was kind of clever. And in this movie, her own personal assistant doesn't consider that this is something she could possibly do,
because she doesn't consider this is something she should possibly do. So, like, another character has been assassinated, albeit nobody's favorite, but still, everyone has lost about 50 IQ points.
Look, he's put his arm in the dishwasher. It's funny. It's a funny scene. Mel has called because Bucky needs a way to find the Thundertards, and this is the best they've got. He repeats his pitch to her. Come over to my side, testify against Selina Meyer, we'll protect you, even though I don't know who you are and I've got no reason to believe that you're vulnerable. Mel isn't really into that idea, but she asks Bucky if he can track her phone, and he says yes he can, but he doesn't really do that anymore, and then Mel hangs up. This is solely there to explain Bucky's later appearance. It is not there to tell us anything about Mel. Mel isn't a character, she's a plot device. She's actually not going to betray Selina Meyer at any point. Essentially, her journey is as follows. She works for Selina Meyer, she has a brief bout of doubt, she tells Bucky some important plot information. She goes back to working for Selina Meyer, she has another brief bout of doubt. She tells Bucky more important plot information, she goes back to working for Selina Meyer, she asks for a raise. The end. The movie tries to have her doubts scale up over time, which just makes it more odd that she goes back to working for Selina Meyer after the worst possible thing has occurred. If Mel was to be a character, she'd either need to change by the end of the movie, or else her not changing would have to be an important point in the movie. But neither of these things occurs. She's a walking, talking plot device. Ideally, humans are more than mere plot devices. Characters furthering the plot can be furthered as characters as well. Since Mel is a pointless person, it would have been significantly better if Mel had been removed from the movie and replaced by a character called Bucky Barnes. Selina Meyer could have recruited Bucky at some point in the off-season, made him her chief agent, sold him on the promise that he'll be using his unique skills to further his country in a manner best befitting his station. It'd be much like her pitch to John Walker. You were a clandestine super soldier manipulated into doing great evil. I'm giving you a chance to continue using these skills for good. Over the course of the movie, Bucky realizing what Selina Meyer really is would lead him to have the doubts Mel is selectively conveying in the film we got. The tragedy of his character would be that a man brainwashed into serving evil has now been tricked into serving evil by someone who convinced him he was doing good. This would give him a greater role, a greater cause to doubt the system. It would present him with a character journey, an arc along which to travel. It would unask all these pesky questions like, how does he know where to go and when? And it would be a much better use of everybody's time than having him be a congressman for no identifiable reason. But no, Mel just has this moment of doubt and asks Bucky to track her phone so the movie can technically explain how he winds up intercepting the Thundertards later. And then it's time for another funny scene as we rejoin the main group in the unpowered elevator where they are stuck because it is unpowered.
Don't worry, I got this.
You should try it again.
Johnny Walker suggests that Ghost go up through the walls, but the movie decides that she has a limitation, now that I'm pretty sure she didn't have in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I have to know where I'm going, because I've never been able to hold it longer than a minute, so I just get lost in motion with dirt and then I'd be crushed to death.
This limitation has been invented in this scene, and only for this scene. It didn't used to be the case, and it's never going to be the case again, but hey, you know, at least it fulfills our immediate need. They have to work together to get up the shaft. It's how writing works. This leads to some pointless bickering that takes the place of actual dialogue fleshing out these characters, and then Bob comes up with a plan. The plan is for them to go back to back and to very, very slowly start shimmying their way up the elevator shaft. This takes them a very, very long time, during which we could have actual dialogue fleshing out these characters, but again, we don't. Instead, we get more quipping and more bickering.
She already was wet.
I went hot, sorry.
Someone's got a weird hard butt.
Ghost takes this opportunity to remind us who she is.
What amazing Exactly. I spent my entire life in labs, hooked up to machines so I could create this physical cage to keep my material body from disintegrating at all times. So yeah, sorry for that. I do not want to start the whole sob story again.
Listen to her trying to make out like she's people. Nobody cared about you when you had a movie made about you, darling. Nobody's going to care about you now. You could have been replaced by fucking air. Meanwhile, more plot occurs up in the sky, where Selina, Meyer, and Mel are flying out to the secret facility. The secret facility is in Nevada, by the way. They're flying from Washington. They had to get from the swanky party to an airport and into their plane and out to Nevada and out to the very remote secret facility in the time it's taken the Thundertards to shimmy their way up the elevator shaft. That already strains against the concept of time, but yeah, it could be worse. At least they're not driving some tatty old limo that's limited to 50 miles an hour. That would be completely ridiculous. Anyhow, Mel has somehow got a positive ID on Bob. It turns out that Bob is indeed Project Sentry.
How did he get in my vault? He was supposed to be dead. You threw him out with the rest of the evidence.
You put him in a giant high-tech transport coffin. All the other dead uns were chucked in body bags. You mean to tell me you've got the technology to turn an ordinary man into mega-evolved Jesus, but none of your scientists knows how to tell if he's alive? I don't believe you, movie. I don't believe they made this mistake, and I don't know why you made it a mistake when you could have made it part of someone's plan. The Thundertards reach the top of the elevator shaft, but oh dear, they're stuck. No one of them can make the leap for the door because the laws of physics mean that if one of them goes, the rest will fall. To make matters worse, Bob needs to sneeze, so they all start shouting at him in a bid to distract him. And then Walker does the sensible thing and jumps for the exit. The rest of the Tards fall, but handily, Ghost can pierce the metal walls of the elevator shaft with her sword thing, so she holds on, and Yelena holds on to her, and she launches a grapple rope thing that saves Bob, which is a massive relief because Bob can't fly yet. Bob can't fly yet. Of course, this does mean their wall scaling thing was mostly pointless, since if Ghost can use her sword as an ice pick, she could have scaled it. And Walker could have used his shield to the same effect, but hey ho, at least we got all those funny lines out of it.
Keep coming.
Like that was a very, very, very funny line. As he gives each of them a hand up, Walker explains that he made a tactical decision to ensure his own safety and thereby ensure theirs. I think the movie wants us to conclude that this is just an excuse, but given they'd have all fallen to their deaths had Bob been allowed to sneeze, well, what else was he supposed to do? Good old Walker, don't you let those shitty writers define you. We know you're good people. When he helps Bob, however, we get another of those mysterious dream sequences that are so very mysterious that nobody ever thinks to bring them up after they happen.
John? What?
Are you watching it?
What? I'm doing it. I'm watching it.
You see, the writers still aren't convinced they've debased John Walker enough. Too many people still have eyes and functioning brains, and they have correctly deduced that John Walker is a hero who did nothing wrong. So, in a bid to make the good man definitively evil, they are now going to turn him into a shit dad. We see him scrolling through his phone, reading a hit piece on some scummy journalistic outlet, like any journalistic outlet you can name. He is doing this rather than watching the baby, and this is bad because the baby is perfectly secure inside its cot. You crazy, irresponsible bastard, John. Anything could have happened. Look how secure it is.
Please. I'm watching him. He's fine.
John, your wife's a woman. Whether or not the baby is fine is not the point. And while I don't know what the point is, I do know that you're in the wrong. It's how relationships work.
You don't like the way that I do it, and you can do it yourself, okay?
Oh, you evil bastard, John. How can you be so irresponsible? Look, your wife is taking the baby out of its totally secure cot, thereby making it significantly less secure than it was. Don't you know that this is what watching the baby entails? You're a vile idiot, John Walker. Your poor wife. Next, you'll be believing her when she says she's fine. Now I'm going to explain the way you could have done this scene to make the point the movie wants to make but better, before I explain why the point the movie wants to make is stupid and it shouldn't be in the movie either way. To make the point better, rather than having the baby in a totally secure cot in a totally secure home at risk of absolutely nothing whatsoever, you set this scene outside in a public place. Maybe at a theme park. You have the wife go to buy ice cream and say, "Watch the baby, John!" You have John looking at his phone, he mumbles, "Yeah, whatever." And while he's busy Googling his own thread on kiwi farms or however it is he chooses to depress himself, the baby toddles off, only for the wife to swoop in at the last minute and rescue it before the man in the Pluto outfit whisks it away to the Disney World rape dungeon adventure. Then the wife chastises him because his selfishness nearly led to a disaster. Then you have him be defensive, then you have the wife walk away in despair. Mission accomplished. John Walker is a dick, and he nearly got his baby, killed. The reason you shouldn't want even that superior scene in your movie is that John Walker is not a dick. Again, the point of his arc in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was to overcome his demotion and his selfish desire for vengeance. He remained a loving family man. His wife was present when Selina Meyer recruited him and supported him in his new mission, which he took because it was a way to serve his country. Because, I say again, everyone with me now, John Walker is not a dick. For this scene to exist, we have to believe that he Don Drapered at some point off screen, unlearned the lesson he learned in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and became more selfish than he was even at his nadir in that show. And at that point, you might as well just start from scratch and make John Walker a brand new character, because this deadbeat wanker is not John Walker. It's such a great advert for Disney Plus, isn't it? The movie would be better if Disney Plus didn't exist. Not content with this retroactive hit job, the movie then has Walker stare almost longingly at the elevator shaft, as though part of him really wants to jump. Once again, this is not John Walker. John Walker saw his best friend murdered in front of him, had the symbol of America taken from him by the people he idolized, was disgraced by the country he served, and still he pinned his medals of honor to his shield and set out to rescue the United Nations. Do you have any idea how selfless you have to be to risk your life for the United fucking Nations? They probably funded the Flag Smashers, for fuck's sake. They fund everybody else.
Walter, what the hell are you doing?
Hey, remember how 5 minutes ago you found yourself in a weird dreamscape when Bob touched you? Did it occur to you at any point that maybe something similar has just happened to Walker? You're all very incurious about this mysterious stranger with the Sith eyes and strong evidence of mind rapery. But questions would slow us down, and the formula dictates that we must get to another action set piece, so off we go. And oh dear, in the time it took them to ascend the elevator shaft, Selina Meyer has taken a limo to the airport and boarded a plane and flown from New York to,
in Bumfuck, Idaho, I think it was.
Actually, I think they're in Nevada. And she's landed and she's traveled all the way out into the desert where her entire private army has spawned and assembled a veritable installation of military equipment ready to go in and take out the Thundertards. My god, they must have been climbing that shaft for hours. This is a very funny joke about my sex life. Remember the days when evil secret organizations could have their mad Swiss AIs launch missiles to cover their tracks? Selina Meyer is being impeached. You'd think the committee might notice if she'd flown out to take personal command of a private army. What the fuck are they doing with their time?
That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack the physical appearance of another person?
Are your feelings hurt?
Her words down.
Aw.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Oh, really?
Don't even play.
Baby girl?
We are gonna move and we're gonna take your words down.
I second that motion.
Miss Green agrees to strike her words.
I believe she should apologize. No. She should apologize.
Okay, hold on. Then after Mr. Perry's going to be recognized, then Miss Green
I'm not apologizing.
Well, then
okay,
you're
reserve
not
the right to
your
object.
words.
I am not apologizing.
Now let's go.
Oh, that's right, they were doing democracy. Inside the facility, the Thundertards attempt to come up with a plan. The movie's idea, which is creditable, is to show show them becoming a team. They begin with a fight, they end up working together. I don't think it totally fails in this endeavor, and the fact it's clearly the design does deserve some praise. The delivery though leaves a little bit to be desired, because the movie isn't built to show this gradually. After all, we've seen them fight, then we saw them work together effectively to get up the elevator shaft. Now they have to revert to squabbling and bickering. Once this bit's over, there aren't really that many interstitial beats before we see them fighting together again, so a journey that would have been most effective progressing from A to Z through a few more letters is instead a journey that goes something like A to B, then back to A, then to Y, then back to A for the second act low point, and then all the way to Z in the space of about 5 minutes. It's really the elevator shaft sequence that works against the idea, since the writers had it that they could only escape by working together effectively, and they used that as their second beat. If they'd progressed from fighting each other to squabbling at their own cost, to reluctantly working together to escape, we would have had a better version of what is a pretty neat idea. Teams, like individuals, have character, and character building your team is important. But to be honest, it's nice enough seeing a Marvel movie recognize this point for the first time in about 7 years, so while it could have been a lot better, at least we've got something. Walker makes a bid for team leadership, and it begins strong.
Well, let's see. I've been in the trenches of every war-torn country on this planet, rescued God knows how many hostages, and shook the hands of 2 US presidents. What else?
But here again, the movie has a pretty neat idea, it's just very clunky in the delivery. Remember the soccer team Yelena was in as a kid? Well, why would you? It's obviously not relevant here. Aha, but cleverly, the movie wants this to be symbolic, and it will make occasionally good use of it later. But uncleverly, it's not entirely sure how to seed the concept, so it kind of forces it into this scene like you with your girlfriend after she's hit rigor mortis.
Oh, high school state football champs, back to back to back, go Bears.
Oh, wow. When I was 5, I was in a Pee Wee soccer team called the West Chesapeake Valley Thunderbolts, sponsored by Shane's Tire Shop. We won 0 games, and one time this girl Mindy, she did a poo at midfield. Anyone else have any pointless childhood stories to tell?
You're forgetting the entire bit where he was a decorated war veteran and clearly the most qualified person to leave the team, darling. And the thing is, there's another scene in just a few minutes' time where this exact same anecdote is going to be deployed, and in a comparatively smooth and natural way. So we actually didn't need her old football team anecdote here. It's the kind of thing that could have been cleaned up if Marvel writers had the time or the inclination to rewrite their scripts. But hey, not to damn with faint praise, but at least we're doing some setup.
Meth addicted sign, twirling chicken. Summer job.
Oh, actually, we're doing more setup. This bit is setting up something very strange that probably shouldn't be in the movie, but hey, you know, multiple setups in a single scene? God, we're feeling ambitious today, aren't we? Ghost realizes that she's a passenger in this script, and so she disappears. The plan was going to be for her to go and secure them an escape vehicle, but she's left before Yelena has told her that that was her job, meaning that when we learn she did stick around and wait for them, this was out of the goodness of her heart that the movie hasn't established exists. Meanwhile, Yelena's plan is for Walker to hold off a wave of enemy troops while she turns the lights off and on to blind the remaining troops who are using night vision. This pays lip service to their respective roles in the party. He provides strength, he's a bit of a tank. She has experience with spycraft and tradecraft. She's kind of like the rogue. She uses tricks. Would sure be nice if these traits were ever relevant again anywhere else in the movie. Turning the lights off and on requires that Yelena flip an awful lot of complicated levers and buttons, because this facility was probably built using government money, so a light switch was too cheap. Outside the facility, Selina Meyer bumps into General Disarray. She tells him he's Ox Group, not the ATF, so he's not allowed to kill people. He's to use non-lethal force only.
No one told me this was non-lethal.
Well, I'm telling you now, Hope, there's somebody inside there. I don't want catching any strays.
Yeah, the real Selina Meyer would have made the ATF joke, I'm just saying. Also, I get the real villain in this movie is depression, but is it too much to ask that even one corporeal bad guy be portrayed as competent and serious and dangerous? Why is he sulking about non-lethal force? Why must everyone be children? Even the incredibly silly people who don't like Andor tend to acknowledge that the Imperial bits are the best in the show, whether it's the highly competent ISB or the first instance of stormtroopers since 1980. At this point, having clever, threatening evilmen pretty much ensures your movie or show will stand out. Your villains are an integral part of your stakes. A reason to fear them is a reason to invest in the story. It does feel like Hollywood has collectively forgotten this most elementary aspect of storytelling. The Ox soldiers breach the facility, and for a brief, glorious moment, the movie teases us with the prospect of a grounded action set piece. Relatable, not overpowered superheroes against relatable, heavily armed private security forces. But all that action's going to take place off screen, so you'll just have to imagine you enjoyed it. Over by the power switches, Bob offers to help.
Well, the medical child was supposed to make me better, and I feel like maybe I could help.
This is odd because until now he's told us that he had no memory of these events, and Yelena does call out the discrepancy. She asks him what he does remember.
No, not much. I just remember they said it was for people who wanted to make something better of themselves.
And I genuinely don't know what we're supposed to take away from this. Because at the end of the movie, spoilers by the way, Bob has genuine amnesia. And while this scene seems to want us to think Bob might be withholding information, perhaps out of shame, embarrassment, or some darker motive, the later scene is portrayed as a reversion to the norm, which would mean he's telling the truth here? I'm not a betting man, but if I had to put money on it, I'd say that the later beat was the result of a rewrite to nerf Bob for the upcoming Avengers movie. Which is a shame, as until that moment, you might have thought this scene here was the beginning of something quite interesting. A man motivated not by evil intent, but by genuine shame. Then again, Bob really has Schrodinger's memory from this point on. Sometimes he remembers things, sometimes he doesn't, and the only rule seems to be what's useful to the plot at the time.
I've always had these episodes since I was a kid. There's a high, then there's a big low, and then my memory just goes blank. I don't know, something bad happened or I did something bad. I mean, everyone hears the bad things.
And this is important because, as mentioned, a huge amount of the finale is going to hinge on his relationship with Yelena, and this is pretty much the last time they're going to speak until the climax. There is, again, a promising idea. Two people with similar trauma and shared demons forging bonds in adversity, proving to each other that there are people in the world who care for them. But, once again, poor delivery. The sum total of the relationship they've built can be summed up with the words, "I'm sad." "Yeah, so am I." "Lol, that sucks." LMAO, yeah. I am trying to be fair to the movie here, but this is a pattern. It does seem to be incapable of delivering on any of its good ideas without first destroying something. Usually it's characters. Where it doesn't first destroy, it fails to deliver. The mere presence of good ideas does evidently percolate. It's probably why people think this is a step up from recent productions. But it's a bit like those supermarkets that pump the smell of fresh bread over their front doors to lure you in, or a woman who puts one of those plug-in air fresheners in her hallway. Just because it smells good doesn't mean there's not a pile of shit at the other end. It's the impending decision to split Bob from the main group that undoes this particular good idea, because it ensures there's not enough time to actualize their potential relationship. You could keep the basic structure in play, but tweak the middle act to keep Bob with the rest of the Thundertards, have them form a genuine friendship, they go together to stop Selina Meyer, Selina Meyer turns Bob, they fight Bob, their friendship wins him back. Unfortunately, in the movie we're going to lean heavily on that friendship, but it is about as firmly established as your grandmother's hip. Yelena's turn it off and on again plan fails because the light system was indeed government work, and so it doesn't work. But things pan out well in the end, as Yelena takes out a squad of soldiers, and then Walker comes back from his off-screen fight. There are two more pieces of good work in this scene that it is worth calling out. In the first place, while Yelena takes out the guards, Bob reprises his offer to help her. He's made it a couple of times, he makes it during the fight, he seems even insistent, and Yelena essentially says, no, just stay behind me. This is good work because it all adds to Bob's unstated character. This is a guy who thinks he's nothing, who went for a medical experiment that promised to make him better, who's now trying to prove he's better, but who isn't trusted to be better. Yelena might be friendlier than the other Thundertards, but she still treats him as dead weight, as useless to her, which of course compounds his self-esteem issues. We're not going to get much of a payoff from that. There'll be no moment where Yelena tells him she was wrong to doubt him, but it does help flesh out the most important part of his character. And then there is the second piece of good work, or, good-ish work. Ghost left. They assumed to escape on her own. Then Walker was nowhere to be seen, and they assumed it was just every man for himself, so he was gone too. Walker has here come back, and Ghost too will return, which establishes that, despite everything we've seen of them so far, there's good people in each of them. They haven't abandoned each other. A team is being built, though none of them are quite aware of it yet. And while, no, that doesn't really gel with what the movie has shown us of either Ghost or Walker, Ghost isn't really a character in this movie, and 5 minutes ago we established that Walker didn't even care about his own fucking kid, but never mind any of that, this escape forms the beginning of their collective redemption.
We probably got about 60 seconds till they mobilize. The Ghost Lady actually did what she was supposed to. Maybe we'll all get out of here alive.
Oh, okay, maybe not. 5 points from Hufflefuck. The scene works much better if they don't expect Ghost to come back. After all, why would they? Everything she's ever said to them tells us she doesn't give a shit, and she just wants to get out on her own. And she left the scene before hearing what the plan was, so she can't possibly know what they were expecting her to do. Yelena, Bob, and Walker don suits from the downed troopers and walk out, past General Disarray and Selina Meyer, and what do you know? There's Ghost, who has commandeered a truck for them. But oh no, on their way out they're stopped and asked for ID. Now that's what I call a sticky situation. I wonder how they'll get out of this one.
Identify yourself. No.
But before they can get in any more trouble, they hear gunshots from behind the vehicle, and oh look! Bob has somehow reconciled his contradictory desires to both help and die by creating a distraction and getting himself killed. He runs out of the truck shooting wildly into the air, and the formerly responsible non-lethal private military company says, "Ha ha, charade you are, we're the federal government," and they pump him full of lead. Only then he stands right back up, because not only can Bob mind rape people, he is also invincible. And not only is he invincible, he can also fly. For anybody writing a superhero character, this is absolutely enough. It's probably already too much. Characters don't become cooler the more powers you give them. Most people grow out of this before they're 10. You'd better not be thinking of giving Bob any more powers, writers. He can already break most scenes he's in with what he's got. Being newly awoken to his powers, they tire him out quickly. So having shot into the sky, he then falls asleep. But because he's invincible, the fall doesn't kill him, meaning Selina, Meyer, and Ox can pick him up and carry him off, while the rest of the Thundertards drive off to safety. Kind of. I will note that Bob got out of the back of the truck drives off in the opposite direction, Bob flies straight up, and so this scene can't actually happen. Also, it's fucking dark and cloudy. There's no way they can see him. Honestly, I think it would have been better if they hadn't seen him, because they could drive off assuming he was both a normal human and deceased, meaning Yelena can take some kind of more potent lesson from his sacrifice, while generally increasing the shock value of their later reunion. As it is, the fact they know Bob is invincible, that he can get in their heads, and that he can tell gravity to piss off, none of that really plays on their minds at any point. It gets precisely one mention that I was able to detect. So essentially, we're depriving a later scene of some revelatory quality, and we're gaining absolutely nothing for the sacrifice. It would have been better to have them think he was dead. The car took more damage from that than Bob did. That's how invincible he is. And they threw him in the bin. Anyhow, remember when Yelena was so sick and tired of her tedious, boring work that she spotted really interesting papers and picked them up for later? Well, by the slow decay of time, now is later.
To test on someone like that, it's sure.
What exactly is your standard here, Yelena? Illegal human experiments with high fatality rates are normally A-okay, but how dare you do it to someone with mental health problems? You savage bastards! More importantly, this movie doesn't seem to see any value in mystery or suspense, which is a shame, as it does have the space for it. For example, Bucky Barnes, he's in the movie. Fuck knows why, he's got nothing to do, but he's here. Bucky is dead set on taking down Selina Meyer for no particular reason. So, why not move the answers part of the Bob mystery to Bucky's B-plot? Give him a solid reason for investigating Ox. His past as a mind-controlled super soldier is fertile ground here. It's a character-specific reason for his investment. He doesn't want such a program being recreated. Then, rather than him being a congressman for absolutely no reason, why not have him working privately on behalf of a congressman, investigating rumored Ox labs? Why not even have him investigate the wreckage of the lab Yelena destroyed at the beginning of the movie, since that would give him a sense of direction? While the soldiers face down Bob in Nevada, we can cut to Bucky as he unearths these documents. We cut between the face-off and Bucky. We see Bucky read and convey shock at one page in particular. We cut back, and Bob takes off into the night. We cut back to Bucky, looking up with purpose, from which we convey that Bucky now knows, even as the Thundertards do not, what their new friend really is. I reckon we could make those amendments without extending the runtime one bit, since these Bucky investigation scenes I'm proposing would be taking the place of the comparatively pointless and contrived Bucky and Mel scenes we got. It has the benefit of making him a more active participant, of building and sustaining suspense, and of eliminating reliance on Mel as a plot device. It would also add an extra dimension to the Thundertard story, as they'd then be audience inferior. We and Bucky know things that they do not. Their lack of knowledge could cause them problems in the near future. It could create a little bit of tension.
How the thousand explains the service?
Century, very shiny.
He's very shiny? Oh, come on, John, we can do better than that. Ghost asks what we know about this, and the answer must of course be nothing, since if any of this were public knowledge, that impeachment committee would have a very simple job.
There was a rumor Ox delivered some kind of big breakthrough. Whatever it was way too extreme. Test subjects were dying. The government looked into it, now shut it down. Just put me on clean update.
God, yeah, we're not done torturing the memory of John Walker, are we? From the patriotic man who'll serve his country in any capacity, he's now a guy who'll knowingly and willingly work for a woman who's gone all Joseph Mengele on innocent people, and then conspire against the government to cover it up. I do not believe that John Walker would be okay with this.
Yeah, women back then, you her? Yeah, I did. She had a tough life. She killed a lot of people and then she got killed. Same as us someday.
I mean, fair play, you did at least remember to have a line referencing Task Manager, but I'm really not sure now's the time. What's more important, Ghost? The invincible flying godman you've just discovered was created by the woman who hired you all to kill each other, or the corpse you stripped for parts a little while back? Walker almost gets a slightly redemptive moment to talk about his mental health. He says the secret to life is just to keep on keeping on, working at it every day, trying to be the best version of you can be. That's more like the Walker we know, but since his name isn't Bob and it isn't Yelena, we don't have to take him seriously. Them's the rules.
Dr. Phil, that was really beautiful.
You know the show's not on anymore, right? I got canceled a few years ago.
To be fair, I actually do rate this a little bit higher than standard MCU quippery, because these actors have chemistry and the humor is tenuously connected to character, but it is funny to note whose depression is treated as most important, because it's a pretty pretty sure signifier of which the most important characters are. Ghost, for example, Ghost is the least important character in the movie, because she doesn't even have depression. Morning comes, the night decays, the watchmen leave their station. Nell brings Selina Meyer a coffee from somewhere and gives her some news that I can only describe as impossible.
7 local outlets have picked up a story from last, and I have 15 messages from concerned housemakers on her side of the aisle.
7 local outlets? Local to what? You're in the middle of the desert. This top secret facility was quite specifically built to be near nothing. If goings on at your secret facility get picked up by the Nevada Desert Tribune, you built it in the wrong fucking place.
You know, I don't say it enough, but I am so impressed that in circumstances like this, you can still get me a good cup of coffee.
Now I get why this line is here. It's here to remind us that the impeachment inquiry remains a nominal threat, while Selina Meyer's response, with the helicopter airlifting Bob off the scene, is designed to show us that she's no longer concerned about it, which in turn tells us she thinks she's got everything she needs. It doesn't change the fact that the idea local newspapers fucking exist anymore is hilarious. Never mind local newspapers whose readership consists entirely of cactuses. And it doesn't change the fact that the impeachment inquiry won't ever get anywhere, and ceases to be relevant to the movie at pretty much this point. You could have replaced the line with something vaguer but more plausible, like, "A blast that size, it won't be long until someone comes looking." That kind of thing. There's really no point reminding us of a plot thread you're about to drop, confirming that the impeachment inquiry is no longer a concern. Selina Meyer orders Mel to send a new team of scientists to the new place. The new place in question is the old Avengers Tower in New York, which she owns. You know, exactly the kind of secret, low-profile place where one could get away with conducting illegal experiments in full view of the US government. She also orders Mel to get rid of the Thundertards because she says they are the last piece of evidence, which isn't true because she's just now setting up a whole new massive piece of evidence in the middle of New York, and which is bizarre because they were only ever the last piece of evidence because she invited them all to a murder barbecue in the place with all of the evidence. Think about it. Prior to the basement sequence, Yelena knew nothing and didn't care about her missions. We have no idea what Ghost knows because she's not a character. We have no idea what Task Manager knew because her knowledge is currently leaking out of that hole in her mask. The only person we can say for sure knew anything about any of this is John Walker, and he's just told us he was quite happy going along with it. So I genuinely don't know what Selina Meyer's plan is or what it ever was. Why did she recruit these people in the first place? Why would she kill super soldiers who are happy working for her when she wants super soldiers to work for her? Why would she lure them to an incredibly compromising place rather than using her vast resources and her private army to take them out safely and secretly if that's what she was minded to do for some reason? Nothing about this makes any sense at all. But hey, it's still a step in the right direction, am I right? Speaking of things making no sense at all, the Thundertards are strolling through the desert. We know Ox Group has air cover because we've seen it, but the movie decides that this poses no problems at all.
Those birds are way too high. Your recon loops at 4,000 feet. They don't know what they're doing.
That's funny because just 5 seconds ago, we were told that Ox Group would make finding you their top priority. You don't think they might have noticed if they were flying so high they couldn't see the fucking ground? Then a limo pulls up.
Don't go in the wall! Valentina's gonna burn you alive!
That's funny because just 5 seconds ago, we were told that getting rid of all the evidence was Ox Group's top priority. You don't think they might have noticed that their own leader had leaked the location of their most secret and illegal facility to a private limo driver who happened to be kind of related to Yelena? Back in 1975, a Senate Select Committee under Frank Church was set up to investigate and examine abuses committed by the CIA, the FBI, by the NSA and the IRS. It revealed things like MK Ultra, COINTELPRO, and Operation Mockingbird, and the investigation was so far-reaching that 1975 became known as the Year of Intelligence. This implies that every other year is a year of no intelligence. We are living in one of those other years. Also, how did Red Guardian manage to drive all the way from Washington, D.C. to Nevada in an old limo that we're about to see maxes out at 50 miles an hour? I think it's like a 33-hour drive from Washington, D.C. to Nevada. Also, how exactly did he know precisely where to come?
So I've been able to pick up Mr. Fontaine plenty well. I figure good networking, but as soon as I overhear the coordinates of the vault, I rush home, I get the technical leads, then I try to screw in here.
You see, the thing is, I don't think she ever mentioned the coordinates of the vault. In fact, I'm pretty sure she never mentioned the coordinates of the vault because we were in the scene while she wasn't mentioning it.
And call Holt, give the vault coordinates. I want the vault strike to know who I.
Also, it's a bit cosmically lucky that the Thundertards happened to walk to the precise place at the precise time in order for him to intersect them with his limo that really couldn't even make the journey in the first place, while they're on the run and should know that the road is the one place Ox is guaranteed to be looking for them. I'm pretty sure this is just a load of wank movie, but hey-ho, Red Guardian's back in the scene and we like him. He's a funny man.
See, have you slipped?
I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, I'd like not to die today.
He's a funny man, I said.
Mr. Walker, you and I have love in common, you know. I do, with state-sponsored super soldier.
But also very different because Walker actually knows what he's doing.
Red Guardian wasn't always a funny man, though. Back at the beginning of Black Widow, he was a highly competent double agent chosen for and able to pull off the most sensitive of sensitive missions. It was only about midway through that movie that the writers either inflicted or received a lobotomy, and he became the lovable clown creature we know today. That movie's threadbare excuse was that he became a useless drunk after his fall from grace and subsequent imprisonment, but there really was a time when he did know what he was doing, and Yelena should know that because she was there at the fucking time. But we can't blame this movie too much for the inconsistency, and by this point you're only playing along if you've accepted that each of these characters has undergone a soft reboot. Having him clown it up as a coping mechanism to avoid dealing with the genuine darkness in his past would have been an interesting and character-rich way to develop him, but we can't be doing anything psychological in this movie about mental health. That'd just be gay and ridiculous. Red Guardian retells the story of Yelena's old soccer team and how terrible they were, and this time it at least feels like it vaguely belongs in the scene, not least because it actually ties into something we might call theme. Yelena and Walker suggest they should all split up and go into hiding separately, but Red Guardian insists that no, because what they have here is the makings of a team. Not necessarily a good team, but a team nonetheless. You know, kind of like the old soccer team. We should stick and work and find glory together, he says. And yeah, it works well enough as a scene because it furthers their collective arc. From a group of strangers who have reluctantly but successfully worked together to the first concept of a team, which they're not quite ready to accept, even as they are acting increasingly like one. Such as in their very next scene, when a column of Ox armor comes up behind them and opens fire. Their actions remain pretty uncoordinated. Red Guardian lobs a Molotov cocktail, which is ineffective. Ghost tries to phase shift, but she gets knocked back by one of those sonic weapons that I guess every single Ox vehicle comes equipped with for some reason. Yelena futilely shoots a pistol at the leading Hummer, but they do look out for each other when all of this goes wrong. Walker in particular looks out for them, because Walker is a bona fide hero. He pulls Ghost back inside the limo after she gets hit with supersonic and becomes confused. He shields her and the rest of the occupants from enemy fire. What a swell guy John Walker is. He's much better than Sam Wilson. Sam Wilson's just a Things nonetheless look bleak until, oh look, it's Bucky. Bucky is paying off all that wonderful setup for his congressman arc by doing his best Arnie in Terminator 2 impression. But Bucky, why would you blow up the limo, Bucky? What the fuck was the point in blowing up the limo, Bucky? You had no reason to blow up the limo, Bucky. You're a congressman. You're only supposed to waste US military equipment. Meanwhile, in Washington.
To call an emergency session of the impeachment committee.
What I can say is that I've gotten a tip from a trusted cohort that will be bringing some new evidence in. And that evidence is juicy.
Whoa, hold on there, Adam Schiff. You don't actually have any new evidence of anything whatsoever at this moment. This is all quite a confusing development, because you might conclude that the new evidence that he doesn't actually have yet is evidence that he expects to get from Bucky. He must know that Bucky has tracked down, located, and apprehended the Thundertards, and when they get back, they will be his evidence. The problem is no, or just maybe no. Because as you might recall, but the movie evidently does not, the last time this chap was in a scene, he was telling Bucky not to bother turning Mel because he already had juicy evidence in some new info packet or whatever. So either he's changed his mind off screen and is totally aware of what Bucky is doing and has complete faith that he'll succeed and that the Thundertards will agree to testify, or he's referring to something else related to the previous scene and we'll just never learn what that is.
I thought where the impeachment committee is convening tonight. This is serious, Val.
I'm old enough to remember when she didn't like being called Val.
Keep your phone on.
Will do, Val.
Don't call me that.
Copy.
But the main thing to note here is the ticking clock information. The impeachment committee is convening tonight, Mel says, and this is interesting insofar as the movie has her say this for absolutely no reason at all, because we're about to pretend like she never did. Selina, Meyer, and Mel have arrived at the old Avengers Tower, which is now called the Watchtower. It's described as being just 70% complete, and we see cranes and such on the outside, which I think means that the writers forgot to watch any MCU content after the original Avengers movie, because the tower was fully rebuilt after that movie, and it was fully operational at the time it was sold. But never the fuck mind, continuity is for nerds. Inside the tower, Mel voices her concerns about Bob.
Something happened in Malaysia. Have you read his file? Delusions of grandeur, depression, amplified by the treatment. You're never gonna be the one.
And how exactly was that supposed to be controlled? Bob becomes the one because he survived the treatment. If you accidentally create a mega-evolved psycho god creature, it's going to be the one whether you like it or not.
Does this look nurturing enough? Very nurturing.
And off we go into another of the movie's stronger scenes. It automatically qualifies as one of the stronger scenes because it's just about the only scene in which the villain has any measure of control and competence. Selina Meyer wants to look nurturing because her plan is to play on Bob's vulnerabilities and convince him to be her sentry.
Oh, no, you tried to kill us.
Okay, fine, I know. I said a stronger scene. It's a relative term, alright? This is a very good point that Bob raises here, and the scene, the strong scene, which I promise we're getting to, and the rest of the movie besides, well, that can only proceed as if we just ignore it entirely. Selina Meyer ignores it entirely, and Bob isn't going to bring it up again. The movie actually has the perfect out. It established that Bob suffers from bouts of amnesia, and now is the ideal time to deploy one. Give him just a very hazy memory of prior events. Say he remembers being in danger, he remembers someone trying to kill him, then have Selina Meyer twist the truth and tell him it was the Thundertards. Job done, the rest proceeds as is. But that is not what we do though, because that would require that the writers were paying attention to what they're doing. So instead, we have Bob raise something that really should make Selina Meyer's job impossible, and then we just pretend that he never raised it to begin with. God, writing, it's just so hard, right?
What happened to Yelena?
Stop raising awkward questions, Bob.
Those are not honest people. They're criminals.
No, they helped me.
I said stop raising awkward questions, Bob. This is supposed to be a strong scene.
Let's just forget about them and let's focus on you.
You could have literally had him forget about them. That was a thing you could have done. Anyway, here comes the stronger scene. I promise it does actually get better from here.
You've always thought of yourself as a victim, but you overcame.
See? Now we're getting somewhere. What's happening here is Selina Meyer is playing off of Bob's established flaws. We've already seen his lack of self-worth conflicting with his desire to prove himself useful, and marrying it to the one piece of information we've just learned from Mel about his delusions of grandeur, Selina Meyer is exploiting a double vulnerability, one part of which the movie has actually shown us, which is pretty good stuff. It shows her being clever, manipulative, competent. More of this, please.
How do you know all that?
I know all of it. I know about your mom's mental illness. I know about your addiction. I even know about the times your father...
Stop! No, I didn't say you could know that.
And now we're using all of this to both reveal something about Bob and to set up something that will be important later. Bob has a particularly dark secret. That is the source of much of his instability. That instability combined with his new powers makes him dangerous.
Robert, I know everything about you, and I still want you to be like I.
And now he's being offered something we know he wants. Acceptance, recognition, the chance to be useful, the chance to be wanted. We saw the first inklings of this desire in that exchange with Yelena earlier, his want to help. We saw her fail to recognize what was happening. We saw him go to self-destructive ends to satisfy this need.
No one else sees it. And I think maybe your past is what makes you so perfect.
And now, Selina Meyer is making herself the sole source of happiness and fulfillment in his mind. All these things I know you want, only I can provide. This is all pretty good stuff, delivered with a kind of motherly, nurturing warmth that again speaks to something Bob has lacked in his life until now. Essentially, the writers have given Bob a fairly complex set of flaws and had Selina Meyer exploit every single one of them. It's such a rarity in a Marvel film that it doesn't even have to be massively special for us to call it out for praise. This is character work. We're doing a character scene. Then she touches his hand, and so, of course, we get another flashback episode. Young Selina Meyer's indiscretion got her father killed. This should be more interesting than it is because it's the backstory for a different character than the one we got in the film. What we're supposed to glean from it, the first thing we're supposed to glean from it anyway, is that this childhood trauma explains her present nature. Selina Meyer has no choice but to develop a keen, devastating awareness of the power of information. It explains how she acts in the world. It explains her personality. It explains her current career. It explains her want to control narratives and intelligence. The problem is that this is not really the character we've seen. The character we've seen is laughably incompetent, never in command, and she spilled the location of her super secret desert lab to a fucking Soviet super soldier limo driver. The whole plot kicked off because half the world had already heard rumors about the illegal experiments she'd been conducting. She has had precious little control over information across this entire film, and yet this flashback is supposed to establish that it's her one pressing drive. I wish we'd had the version of the character that this flashback was setting up, but instead, no, we've just got a fucking moron. The last strong-ish bit of the scene is her reaction to this flashback. For the first and last time in the movie, she remains, in the main, composed. We see her bury this trauma almost instantly.
Wait. I can control it.
Great.
And we see that reliving this most horrible part of her life can be instantly suppressed in favor of her present-day goal. This establishes a cold ruthlessness that we've not really seen before and that we won't see again, but hey, at least we saw it once. Oh boy, we're back on track and returning to form. Can't you just feel the form to which we are returning? It's so great to be back on the track of the form that we are returning to. Don't you agree? All the reviews said it, so it must be true. Anyway, that's the strong scene over with, so now back to Tartville.
After the press here, in the morning, it's time to show everyone what I've been working on.
In the morning? As in tomorrow morning? But Val, that's too late. Don't you remember what Mel told you just a few minutes ago?
I thought the impeachment committee is convening tonight. This is serious, Val.
Forgive me for time-splaining to you, darling, but a press conference tomorrow morning probably ain't gonna stop the impeachment committee that's happening tonight. Tonight occurs before tomorrow morning. That's how time works. And given Congressman Watson confidently predicted you would end up in prison, I'm really not sure that a press conference revealing the results of your illegal human experiments is the best way to avoid those charges.
You put a serum into someone like Steve Rogers, he becomes Captain America. But do it to someone this unstable, I mean, who knows what it did to him?
Yeah, remember that bit in Captain America: The First Avenger where Steve had to undergo extensive psychological evaluation to ensure that he had no past trauma or mental instability? Because if he did, the super soldier serum might turn him into a flying depression monster? What's that? You don't remember? Well, that's because it wasn't how super soldier serum worked back then, or how it worked on Bucky, or how it worked on Red Guardian, or how it worked on John Walker, or how it worked on Isaiah Bradley, or how it worked on the Flag Smashers. Is that all of them? Is that all of the super soldiers? Or, you know, all the super soldiers so far. But we're now in this brave new world where there's a super soldier serum that can give you pretty much any combination of any conceivable set of powers based on how you were feeling when you took it. Bob was incredibly sad and traumatized, so he gets to fly, be invincible, read minds, and eventually turn into sad Thanos. Now I'm wondering what he'd turn into if he had undiagnosed erectile dysfunction. Probably Pedro Pascal, right?
That's why we build in safeguards. Didn't we make a kill switch? Yeah, but we threw it out. Well, then remake it.
You guys really need to be more discriminating when you chuck stuff in the bin. Why do you even need a kill switch? The MCU has about 47 known mind control methods. The Green Testicle Man in Captain Falcon 4 could send it in a text. You should probably have gone with that. Mel doesn't look very happy with where all this is headed, and it is by now well established that when Mel is unhappy about something, it's because the movie needs Bucky to get updated directions. She'll go right back to being happy in her job once she's told him where to go.
You know women, mate. Like monkeys they are. Won't let go of one branch till they get a grip on the next.
True, Doug Ray Scott, true. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Bucky has the Thundertards all tied up and is waiting around for the plot to catch up with him. I have no idea how he got them here, given he was riding a motorbike and he blew up their limo, but somehow here they are. He informs them that they're all going to be evidence in the impeachment committee, meaning that yes, at some point he and the committee chair had a very important off-screen conversation that contradicted the on-screen conversation we actually got. The Tards try to tell Bucky about Bob, but Bucky is as invested in their story as Sebastian Stan is in this movie, so he dismisses them.
Congressman Barnes, as you know me, Bucky, cut the shit and listen to what we're trying to tell you. Yeah, I know you, John. I know it's been hard since Olivia left you and took your kid, but still, this is on you.
Ah, the modern MCU, where John Walker is more of a hero than Bucky Barnes, and absolutely none of the writers realize what they've done.
Bucky, there won't be a committee left. Okay, there might not even be a government.
No. I think you're fine as far as that goes. The committee sits this evening, and Selina Meyer's grand evil plan is to hold a press conference tomorrow. Disappointing though it is, the government will still exist. Also, unless there was a lot more information in those documents you read, all you know about Bob is that he can fly and tank tremendous amounts of damage. There are many such cases in the MCU. If the government can survive a Hulk, it can probably survive Bob. It's like Japanese knotweed in that way, or a cockroach, or Noam Chomsky. Bucky tells them that the plane, that I guess he ordered at some point, will arrive in 6 minutes' time, but then he gets a phone call from Mel, and Mel tells him about Bob, so now Bucky believes the Thundertards.
Come, now, please. Bring anyone you can.
And now he's on their team, because in 2 very large phases post-Endgame, we're somehow in the position where there is nobody else to call, except maybe Spider-Man, or Wong, or Captain Falcon, or Clint Barton, or fucking, I don't know, She-Hulk. A somewhat more interesting premise for this movie might have been for Bucky and the Thundertards to unite considerably earlier than they have, and then to have them fight their way back to testify in Washington while Selina Meyer's Ox group attempts to take them out, but no, I mean, fuck it, we're not going to do anything like that. Instead, they ditch the impeachment hearing thing entirely, even though the movie has established that they've got time to do both, and they head off to New York together.
Yes! It's an assignment. Calibrate your enthusiasm.
Back in the Avengers Tower, or the Watchtower, or whatever it's called now, Selina Meyer decides that she knows about Mel's secret calls with Bucky after all. I don't know when or how she learned this, and frankly it should have been a long time ago because she exploited exactly this kind of thing in Wakanda Forever, but fuck it, hey ho, better late than never. Rather than simply kill Mel though, she gives her a brief explanation of her worldview.
What do you think this job is going to be? I don't know. I hope I've done some good. You want to be good? Or do you want to be somebody who changes the world? I mean, I thought you wanted to change the world for the better, too. Righteousness without power is just an opinion.
That's a fairly interesting line, and it would sure be nice if it had featured prominently in the film, but as the camera makes sure you know, all this exchange is really here to do is to establish that they fished that kill switch out of the bin, which they must have done because they've only had maybe 10 minutes in which to remake one from scratch. And yes, it is quite funny that the kill switch was apparently made by Nokia in the mid-1990s. Look at the size of that thing. I guess it's a kill switch because you can literally bludgeon people to death with it.
You're brought up to believe that there's a good guy and a bad guy. But then eventually you come to realize that there's a bad guy and a worse guy and nothing else. Let me know when you come to your senses.
Again, kind of interesting as a premise, and we could have done a lot more with it if Selina Meyer had been something other than a shallow clown creature, but it's not going to come up again. So all that's left to point out is that Mel could, at any point now, email fucking wads of information to the impeachment committee, or even just call the cops, because she knows everything, and Selina Meyer hasn't even bothered to restrain her, but instead she gets banished to the naughty step to think about what she's done, and because she's not a character, she'll have completely changed her mind the next time we see her. Speaking of people rapidly metaphor-sizing, Bob is adding to his power set.
I can do that.
You can do anything.
Yes, and this is a problem. The power scaling in the MCU no longer exists. You can make God in a test tube. The universe is broken.
People think they know you. They just see you as Bob. I'm the only one who knows what your true potential is, Robert.
But this continues to be good enough. It's a shame we've only had a single line to support the delusions of grandeur point, which is going to get truly spasmogrified in just a few minutes' time, but taking a vulnerable man and tying his happiness to your will, exploiting him in this way, is probably the cleverest thing in the entire movie. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, the Thundertards have commandeered a truck from somewhere and driven an indeterminate distance to New York. Bucky did say there was a plane due to pick them up, so I guess it's fair to assume they flew most of the way? In the back of the truck, Yelena, Ghost, and Walker bond by mocking Walker's tiny penis.
It's a little long.
And then they mock his helmet.
And what about your hat?
The hat. The helmet?
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
It's like, cool. Yeah.
You mock it now, but they're just going to replace it with nanotech, aren't they? And nanotech makes everything worse. More interesting things are happening up front. Bucky Barnes, super soldier, storied history, missions he regrets, experience with both the Soviet Union and Hydra, a past that remains largely hidden. Red Guardian, super soldier, storied history, missions he's nostalgic for, experience with the Soviet Union, a past that's been largely forgotten. Of all the characters in this movie, these two probably have the most to say to each other. Their interactions have by far the most potential. Their conversations have some incredibly rich subject matter. So, I wonder what deep insights, what conflicts, what commonalities we will expose.
What kind of super serum did you get?
I don't know, regular. Hydra.
Hydra?
Oh, fancy. Okay, not great, admittedly. How does Red Guardian even know about Hydra? Never mind Hydra's super soldier serum.
Mine was Soviet recreation, but it's still good.
So there was a Soviet recreation of a top secret Hydra super soldier serum? I thought that was all hushed up. Wasn't it a significant reveal in Civil War? Bucky was injected with the super soldier serum in the 1940s after his capture, but it wasn't until 1991 that he was sent to assassinate Howard Stark and retrieve the replicated serum. So what was the Soviet program recreating and how? Was there some sort of Hitler-Stalin pact for super soldier serum? Because Red Guardian can't have been given a replica serum from the Winter Soldier program in 1991 because he was a super soldier before 1991.
We could be co-leaders in this, huh?
A little different.
You get tired, I drive.
I don't get tired.
Almost!
We're not gonna get it, are we? We're not gonna get even a single actual conversation between them.
Okay, Mr. Soldier, what is the secret plan?
The plan.
Oh, fuck it, I wasn't interested anyway. So their grand plan to stop Selina Meyer and save Bob is to crash a van into the Avengers Tower like some sort of dollar store Al-Qaeda. This would be the Avengers Tower in which Selina Meyer is constructing a brand new super secret Ox lab, which has to be super secret because if anybody discovers it, or Bob, or the fact she's still in charge of Ox, she will be impeached. The movie has very clearly told us that this is the case. So naturally, she has a full-on battalion of heavily armed private mercs just lounging around in the lobby in full view of the street outside. There are random chumps just strolling around out there. Look at them all scurrying away. You'd think one of them might call the cops given they've just seen a van of peace slam into a major landmark and a gunfight break out inside. The newspapers learned about an explosion in the middle of a desert in about 5 minutes. I think the impeachment committee might notice that a small war has broken out in the middle of New York.
I left the door unlocked for you. Come up.
You didn't know they were coming. Fuck off. So you're telling me that this team, pretty much every single one of whom has been a paid-up secret agent operating in the criminal underworld, carrying out highly dangerous and lethal missions for Selina Meyer, they just got in the lift? She could have rigged it to blow, or plummet to the ground, or trap them, or gas them all to death.
How crazy is it to think of all the monumental fights that happened exactly here where you're standing?
And it's crazy to think anyone who remembers any of those battles can consider this film a return to form.
Yeah, I don't really care.
I mean, the place wasn't cheap, but it's got good optics.
Look at her riffing on the Tony Stark and Loki scene in Avengers. Fuck it, at least she's got her priorities in order. Building's only 70% complete, but there is a fully functioning bar with backlighting and everything. Bucky delivers a line of stock dialogue with all the enthusiasm of an actor who knows he's delivering a line of stock dialogue.
Well, it's over, Valentina. In a sense, today.
Why, though? How? You haven't called the cops. You haven't informed Congress. You've just come here to perform some sort of citizen's arrest on the head of the CIA. You're probably jeopardizing the campaign to bring her to justice. All she has to do is say, hey, the head of the impeachment committee sent his pet super soldier congressman, who, by the way, used to work for the Nazis and killed JFK, to try and kill me. This committee is compromised and it should be impeached.
You know, I never really thought you'd have a promising political career, but less than half a term.
Nobody ever thought he'd have a promising political career. It has indeed been less than half a term. So why did they make him a congressman in the first place? Walker says they're here to take her in, which is something the police and the FBI could have done if they'd gone to Congress rather than the penthouse fucking bar. Selina Meyer calls him the junior varsity Captain America, which shouldn't sting him, but does. They think this explains why why he stops rather than apprehending her, which is important because if any one of them did apprehend her, then the next scene couldn't play out.
Oh, nice to see you, Ava.
Yeah, and that's it. There's nothing to say about Ghost. I mean, besides the fact that she's present in the movie. I don't know why this stops Ghost from grabbing her. In fact, there's nothing to stop any of them from grabbing her, except that, yeah, again, the script needs for them not to do that.
Yelena, you look awful.
Catherine, why is that your hair?
You sure you're really ready for that public-facing role you asked me about?
Eat shit, Valentina.
This is just an extended version of the truck scene from a few minutes ago. It's just dialogue to fill a gap in the script. None of these people have anything to say to each other because none of them have relationships. Which is absurd because Selina Meyer hired most of you. Why did she do that? What did she see in you? How have you disappointed her? How has she disappointed you? Why did she hire you? Why did you agree to be hired? This scene should tell us things we don't know. And there's a lot we don't know because we don't know anything about the where, the when, or the why of the plan Selina Meyer was implied to be concocting all throughout Phase 4.
Who is this old Santa?
The Red Guardian.
What?
You're the head of the CIA! He is the only known Soviet super soldier. How do you not know this? Bucky finally goes to grab Selina Meyer, but his arm is telekinetically frozen by none other than Bob. Bob, who has used this power precisely once and who hadn't got it dialed in, hence the glass of water exploding. Well, in no more than a few hours of practice, Bob has ascended to the rank of Mega Evolved Psycho Bob.
Oh my god, that's Bob.
Selina Meyer introduces him as the Sentry.
Hey guys.
And then she helpfully exposits just how broken Bob is.
All-powerful, invincible, stronger than all of the Avengers, and soon to be known as Earth's mightiest hero.
Everything special about you came out of a bottle, except where Steve Rogers got strength, height, and decelerated aging, Bob got strength, invincibility, flight, telekinesis, psychic projection, and a fucking chip. Good job the Flag Smashers didn't steal this serum, otherwise Freckle Jesus would now be God Emperor of the universe. Good job the MCU will forget this serum ever existed, otherwise the new Avengers could beat Doctor Doom with mass-produced psycho gods in about 30 seconds. For fuck's sake, power needs limits, guys, not just ethically, but mechanically. Unlimited power wrecks universes. If anything goes, nothing works. The most popular superheroes of the last few years have all been limited. Spider-Man, Batman, Daredevil, Steve Rogers, even Tony Stark. He's human beneath the suit. They are comprehensible. Bob is not. No universe where you can make Bob in a bottle is comprehensible. God damn it, they said this was a return to form.
Okay, I'll bite. What's the plan?
Careful now, you don't want to sound too enthusiastic.
You see, the press is on their way here now.
Wait, now I'm confused. Because you said you'd called the press conference for tomorrow morning, but if this is tomorrow morning, then the impeachment committee happened last night. But if it was relying on the Thundertards testifying, it couldn't, because it took the Thundertards 12 hours to get from Nevada to New York. But then they had a plane coming to pick them up. Did we just forget the whole impeachment thing? Yeah, I think we might have just forgotten the whole impeachment thing.
They're going to witness the awesome power of Sentry as he takes down this ruthless group of rogue agents.
Yeah, thereby proving that you're still in charge of ARCs and you did conduct illegal human experiments and now you have your own personal Jesus and he just killed a sitting congressman. I don't think the plan's gonna work, love.
Thus beginning a new era in which I decide how to keep the American people safe.
God, remember Civil War? Remember how several villains worth of character conflict between Tony and Steve came to a head in a clash of visions and ideals between freedom and security? Remember how all we needed to bring this out was some paper on a desk? Truly, they were the best of times. These are the worst of times.
I'll be unimpeachable.
You will be very impeachable.
Your first mission is to take out these criminals.
And so begins the fight. Bob says he doesn't want to hurt them, and the fight could probably have been stopped before it even began if they had said that they don't want it to happen either. I've complimented the stuff between Selina Meyer and Bob leading up to this, but it's not enough to explain him unquestioningly going along with her patently absurd plan. And the movie thinks it's done more work than it actually has to establish Bob's friendship with the Thundertards. So them laying down their weapons and appealing to his conscience would probably be enough to avoid the battle if they thought to do it.
Enough talking! No one messes with the West Chesapeake Valley Thunderbolts!
Oh joy, they didn't think to do it. Yelena does make a half-hearted attempt to stop the rest of the Thundertards provoking mega-evolved Psycho Bob, but they don't listen to her, and they get themselves roundly fucked.
He is the one.
Even assuming the Thundertards have a reason to attack Bob, which they don't, you'd think they might engage their brain holes at some point in proceedings. They already know a lot about what Bob can do. They know he's invincible. They saw him survive the ATF. Then they read about a whole bunch of his powers in the instruction manual that came with him. Why bother trying to punch, stab, or shoot a guy that you already know is immune to all of these things? The movie wants this to result in a threat to the Thundertards' team cohesion. They'll get beaten, the team they've been forming will come to the verge of collapse, but it has to make them individually to get there. If Bob had an established vulnerability, that would provide them with an incentive to at least try attacking him, but the movie as presented has made him logically undefeatable, and it's ensured all these people know that he's undefeatable, so what's the point? Why are they even trying? Oh yeah, super speed as well. He's also got super speed. I forgot to mention that one. And also he can bend vibranium, so I'm pretty sure he's now stronger than the Hulk as well. Good stuff. And heat vision. He's got heat vision as well. Didn't Bucky get instantly knocked out when Iron Man blasted his arm off in Civil War? I'm pretty sure that should totally wreck his entire torso. At least the Dora the Explorers know where the secret buttons are when they take it off him in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Fucking dumb as all hell though that is. But I'm pretty sure you can't just rip it off his body without him taking some pretty serious damage. Anyway, Thundertards easily bested. They run away back down the lift. Selina Meyer tells Bob to finish the job, but oh dear, he's become self-aware.
You know, maybe I should have had more to say.
Don't let those idiots get in your head. The blonde is great.
It's not just about the hair.
Well, you keep talking about the hair.
Given what we've just seen, this kind of exchange was always going to seem unjustifiably trivial and silly, and given where we're going next, it's only more so.
Why would a god take orders from anyone at all?
I think you're throwing around the word God a bit loosely, Harry.
But Mel told you he had delusions of grandeur, and yeah, sure, a single line of dialogue was absolutely insufficient to set up this heel turn, but given how deftly Selina Meyer exploited Bob's various psychopathologies to get him on side, we're now having to undo the one competent thing she's done in this entire fucking movie.
Because you said I was all powerful and stronger than a whole team of Avengers, which includes at least one god. So
it's just that simple. QED. We could have skipped the delusions of grandeur bit. We could have skipped the psychopathic god reveal. I mean, it's only going to be relevant for this precise scene. We could have exploited broken friendships to send him into a kind of doom spiral that Selina Meyer is incapable of controlling or pulling him out of because her care for him is insincere. That would have the benefit of crystallizing Bob's major dysfunction rather than adding yet another expression of it. Bob shouldn't be refusing orders because he thinks he's too good, too powerful, too godlike to obey. He should be made uncontrollable because he's uncontrollably sad. And the bitter, tragic irony of the thing would be that Selina Meyer made him that way because she doesn't care about him, and so she undermined the friendship she accidentally created. You see how it's so easy just to reconstrue and reorder bits of the film, give the villain something like a stable motive as a through line, and all of a sudden everything just makes a lot more sense? Bob goes to choke Selina Meyer, knocking the kill switch out of her hand. But then Mel pops up and she presses it, and that's the end of Mega Evolved Psycho Bob the God Creature. Henceforth, Bob's presence in the real world is in the form of Shadow Thanos. And we could have pretty much gone straight here. Skip the choke out fake out, ditch the silly kill switch, have Bob consumed by Shadow because he's lost the only friends he ever thought he had. Have him consumed by that sadness here, in response to relationships and broken trust and despair, rather than because a plot device character pressed a plot device button and turned him into a misery demon. Outside, everyone's walking around like it is just a normal day. They haven't seen a van ram raid the Avengers Tower, they haven't just witnessed a gunfight in the lobby, they haven't been showered in falling glass and watched a fat Russian man get launched out of a window. They do not notice a group of strangely dressed superheroes having a mini breakdown in the street. The Thundertards bicker, naturally, because no one's allowed to register the absolute horror that is Bob. The MCU can introduce more and more powerful people as episodic villains, and everyone in each episode has watched every other episode, so nobody is surprised by this stuff anymore. The audience isn't, and neither are the characters in the movie.
We are the Thunderbolts! I don't know what that means.
It's how Pee-wee's soccer team thing.
Guardian tries to hold them together, which I guess works given he was the first one to see potential in this team, but then Yelena brings an end to it.
Oh my god, stop! There is no us, there is no we. Bob changed into that thing, and there is nothing any of you can do about it.
Now imagine how much more powerful this might have been if they'd been with Bob through the entire movie and seen him change because Selina Meyer told him a single half-truth. That the friendship he thought he'd formed with them was a lie, an expedience, something she manufactured. In this alternate movie, Yelena saying Bob turned into that thing would mean more, because there'd be the implicit acknowledgement, which Florence Pugh could definitely convey, that we turned him into that thing. As it is though, it's mostly just a statement of fact.
What did you do exactly? Because I seem to remember you getting your ass beat way worse than mine.
Sure, fuck it, why not? It's a competition over who got beaten worse because they've got nothing else to say to each other, for fuck's sake. Who even are you, Ghost? Fucking go away.
Yeah, I suck. We're all terrible. I mean, you're not a hero. You're not even a good person.
I'll raise you one. She's not even a person. She's not a character. She just is. Then, Yelena turns her ire on Red Guardian.
Alexi, I am not your Amichka. I haven't heard from you or seen you in a year.
Why? I mean, I get that we're ramping up to steal another Black Widow scene, but at least that movie, and fuck, I can't believe I'm saying this, but at least that movie kind of knew how to earn the moment. The drunk Red Guardian was living in denial, prizing fake glory as real triumph and shoving real attachment beneath his facade. They hadn't seen each other in many years because he'd been in prison and Yelena was a brainwashed agent of Ray Winston and his funky scrotaroma. Yelena is upset when they reunite, and he seems flippant about a family that was real to her, but that he suggests was fake and trivial to him. To reach roughly the same point in this movie, we've just had to manufacture a 1-year absence that the close of Black Widow, and even the Hawkeye show, suggests would never have happened. And we're now talking about one of the strongest scenes in this movie. We have to break so much to get anything good out of it. Yelena again accuses Red Guardian of abandoning her. She lost her sister for a second time, she says, and this time it's forever, and he wasn't there for her. Even though the Hawkeye show kind of implied that they were still in contact, but whatever.
I'm sorry. I don't know how to do this. I'm not good at it. I didn't think you wanted me.
Yelena finally, for the sake of argument, admits the truth.
I did.
I see that. I'm late. What time? I'm here now.
Florence Pugh and David Harbour give what is, hands down, amongst the strongest performances of any scene in the last 7 years of superhero movies.
I am
I'm so alone. I don't have anything anymore. All I do is sit and look at my phone and think of all the terrible things that I've done, and then I go to work, and then I drink, and then I come home to no one, and I sit and I think about all the terrible things I've done again and again.
Stop. We all have things that we regret.
No, but I have so many.
Yelena brings up her first mission in the Red Room, the memory we saw earlier in this very movie.
I know there were dark times, but before you walked into a room, you made it bright.
I don't remember that feeling.
They are really very, very, very good at their jobs. And it is still astounding that they were given Disney Plus characters, so this is the first time we've seen them in the cinema. We could have had an entire phase with these characters. But hey, who needs characters when you can have screaming goats? This scene provides the payoff for the soccer... Did I just... No, I didn't just say... Fuck you, America. No, go away. This scene provides the payoff for the football team photo at the beginning of the movie. The reference in the elevator shaft, the reference to it in the limo, the thing that gives this series of unfortunate events its name.
You remember why you want to be goalie on your terrible soccer team? You told me I want to be the one everyone can rely on if they make a mistake.
And while this does veer dangerously close to one of those "and then everyone clapped" posts you used to see on Twitter before those users migrated over to the sex offenders registry, the intent is laudable and the device is good. It's often advisable to condense a crux, whether emotional, character, thematic, into a single item. It's something for the brain to latch onto, something that can serve as a substitute for later exposition, allowing the script to reveal the meaning in summary form rather than introduce, explain, and conclude in mere text or dialogue. Everyone has a narrative understanding of team sports. The goalkeeper is a mission familiar to fans of several different sports besides the best one. The position stands out as the one few people ever want to play. The open question, which you will have registered even if you put it aside, is why Yelena should have wanted to play it. That probably says something about her, you might have thought, or just vaguely intuited. So Red Guardian giving the reason for it in this scene fills in gaps and answers a question, rather than broaching, investigating, then answering that question all in one go.
That Yelena, stealing, I still see her.
Kind of.
When I look at you, I don't see your mistakes. That's why we need each other.
And here we get the summation of the theme. Kind of. We get the summation of what is sometimes the theme: connection, family, friendships, bonds. We need our friends and loved ones because when we see the worst in ourselves, they see the best. And when they see the worst in themselves, we see the best. So the device is good, and the acting is excellent, and, for as long as it lasts, the thematic point is heartwarming, optimistic, and genuinely valuable.
Okay, that was really good.
You steady on, we probably don't want to be complimenting our own work. I know quipping is basically Yelena. I was gonna say it's basically her thing, but no. I know quipping is basically Yelena. That works better. But given this could be construed as a defense mechanism, a tearful, wordless hug would have sold Red Guardian's success much better. Establish that she tells jokes and makes quips to avoid dealing with the truth, in order to portray her lack of quips, her complete breaking down, her honest but silent hug, as Red Guardian's ultimate victory. He's broken through her defenses like she was Czechoslovakia in 1968. That's a reference. Besides that, it was all pretty good, omitting, of course, that it doesn't really fit with their characters as previously depicted. For it to work completely, you have to pretend that the family dinner scene in Black Widow just doesn't exist, and then imagine a very different ending to that movie, and then pretend that the Hawkeye show doesn't exist. I know I'm asking a lot, it's such a difficult thing to do, but that is the price. Black Widow has to end on a relatively sour note for this scene to work, or at least a distant one, with the family not reformed. It has to contain the reason for them not seeing each other or even speaking to each other for a year subsequently. Having any prior conversation with them just throws up all sorts of difficulties. It makes this scene seem derivative as opposed to a great, unique, creative creation, and it raises awkward questions. Yelena here is talking about the deep trauma she experienced in the Red Room, but Red Guardian basically gave her up to the Red Room at the beginning of Black Widow, the trauma of which she is now relaying to him. This is an odd place for them first to have that chat, and it's a bizarrely weightless conclusion to it. The worst of Yelena in her own mind is kind of his fault, and maybe if he'd not been such a clown-tard all the way through the movie, we might have been able to do something more with that. But hey-ho, Yelena saying that was really good is unsatisfying because its goal is not to tell us anything about her character or the exchange she's just had. No, it's a line to tell the audience that we are now done with that conversation, so now it's time for an action scene. Red Guardian looks up and he notices the people in the streets looking up as well. They all look to the sky. Mel and Val look to the sky. Everyone looks to the sky. What is that? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No. It's sadness. Like all good ATF employees when looking at things they don't understand, one of them empties an entire clip into Shadow Bob to predictably nil effect. And then Shadow Bob reveals his latest, most unstoppable power. He is Depression Thanos, and he can blip people with misery. Bob now has the ultimate power in the MCU, the power to put people in blackface so they get cancelled from the universe. Anyway, then we move into another okay scene. The now pilotless helicopter crashes into a crane, which crashes into a building, which starts dropping lumps of debris on the streets below. And so I invite you to cast your minds back to when Red Guardian outlined the happiest time of his life. And since that was quite a long time ago in this video, I'm going to cast them back for you. I have control over your minds, you see.
You want to know when I was really good? Saving civilians in the streets, being shit on by the crowd.
Well, we're finally paying that off. Pretty neat, right? Look at them go, saving all these people. Oh look, the crowd is applauding them. The Thundertards, moments ago on the verge of splitting up, are all living Red Guardian's dream. And you know, they kind of enjoy it. It's genuinely not bad, and as a deliberate homage of sorts to the first Avengers movie, it also serves as a bit of a setup for the big, exciting name change reveal at the close. And conventionally, this would be their moment of triumph leading to the denouement. But we still have a Depression Thanos to deal with, and he's in a bad mood, so we can't end it there.
You're safe, little one.
I know this is supposed to be horrifying, but it's very funny to me that Depression Thanos was up there picking his targets and he thought, you know what, this is a Disney property, fuck kids. Having picked off the child first, Depression Thanos starts blipping people into the Shadow Realm indiscriminately.
Nick Bob's dark side got superpowers.
Yeah, there's almost no choice but to be glib about it, because if you actually try to treat this seriously as a thing that's actually happening, as a being random scientists can actually just create in a lab, then what's the point of anything anymore? The only thing that can beat Bob is... well, we'll get to that. Depression Thanos' shadow begins to spread, and Yelena walks right up to the edge, and here we get what I will euphemistically term a leap of faith. No! Red Guardian is very upset because he has made the sensible calculation that Depression Thanos is killing people. This is a safe assumption, and it's the natural one anyone in this situation would make, because the dude's a flying black embodiment of nihilistic emptiness. And the last time people were blipped out of existence, it took time travel, magic stones, a world-defining war, and an ultimate sacrifice to bring them back from nothingness. They were, for all practical purposes, deceased. Look, they had memorials and everything. Now, if you've already seen the movie, you will know, and I will know, that Red Guardian is wrong, of course, but we can forgive him for that, because he hasn't heard the upcoming exposition scene yet.
I'm gonna laugh now. If she did that, she did it for a reason.
The last time you saw her, she was in a pit of abject despair. For all you know, the reason is she wanted to kill herself. The reasonable assumption is that going after her means joining her in hell.
Well, what if she's dead? Huh?
It's the most energized Bucky's looked all movie, and it's when he's pointing out that the movie makes no fucking sense.
What if she's
No, wait, hold on. I think she might have a point. When I was back in the vault, I saw something. What did you see?
No, you didn't go somewhere. You had a dream. I know the movie thinks it's onto something here. I know it thinks it set this up and it's justified it, but it really hasn't. Walker had a dream when he touched Bob's hand. He did not pop out of existence. We know he didn't pop out of existence because we were there and so were the rest of the TARDs, and if he disappeared into the Shadow Realm, you'd think they might have noticed it. Design language is important, kids. If you wanted to make sure that these two things were almost certainly connected in a way that makes Walker's suggestion kind of justified here, you'd have to go back to the vault scenes and play with disappearance. Have the dreams happen while no other characters are in the room. Have the dream end. Have the dreamer and Bob standing there. Have one of the other characters run around the corner and say, "Oh, there you are," or "Where did you go? Come on, we've got to get out of here." Something that doesn't tell the audience that Walker had disappeared, but something we could now read back into that scene. You could even have Walker go into the dream in one location and wake up in another as though he'd suffered memory loss. Anything like that would A, establish the mechanical link, and B, give Walker a reason to join these dots in this scene. Anyhow, the Thundertards are sold on this very silly theory, and they're all going to jump into the Shadow Realm together. Inside the Shadow Realm, the movie is doing its we're so back, step in the right direction, return to form. Mental health is important thing again. Yelena wakes up in her Red Room mission dream again. She runs away before little Anya is killed, and this is to symbolize that running away from your problems isn't the answer, unless your problems are like, I don't know, a lion or a velociraptor or maybe Diddy. This being a dream, the rules are whatever you want them to be, and so she runs into a dream wall that she can't get through, and behind her, the memory plays out again. This time she tries to intervene, but she gets attacked by a dream child, and then a tree decides it's very invested in the movie's theme, so it grabs her and holds her in place as the memory begins to play again. This is to symbolize that nature doesn't give a fuck about your mental health, and it might even be complicit in your misery. You need to stop nature before it's too late. Alternatively, this is to symbolize that nature wants you to confront your demons and you should really listen to your nearest tree. Aren't Mind Palace dream sequences so wonderful? Anything can mean whatever you want it to mean so long as you can present a compelling narrative. As Carl Jung famously said, it all depends on what you're paying to hear. Then Yelena decides she doesn't want to be trapped by the tree anymore, so she breaks free of it and crashes through the dream wall into another dream room. This symbolizes what psychologists call a breakthrough, which in practice means that they've discovered a deeper, darker level to your trauma that will require at least 6 months of further expensive treatment. Cha-ching.
Bob, we don't have time for this.
There's always time to talk about your mental health, Yelena. We've never had more therapists. It's why society today is so well adjusted and sane. This next dream sequence is a Red Room training scene in which a young girl who is the fastest to reload her gun is made to watch as the instructor whips the hands of all those who finished behind her. Once again, Yelena attempts to intervene, standing in front of her younger self to stop her from seeing. Mockery notwithstanding, it's a strong-ish idea, much less ambiguous than the random dream walls and interventions by the forest, and it quite obviously ties into the first play of the dream murder. You can spend as much time as you want cold reading meaning into the subsequent plays of that dream, which I think is why this sequence is getting so much praise. It has much less to say than you'd think reading the reviews, but it gives the impression it has much more to say than it does. The concrete information is, you cannot stop the memory. The past is set. Running away from it doesn't solve anything. Not looking won't help you. And those of us who actually do take mental health kinda seriously can applaud the presence of a through line, while lamenting the confusion around it and the fact that it's not going to be sustained all that long. But at least we've had it for a little bit. It's more than I was expecting. There is a mirror behind the young Yelena through which adult Yelena briefly sees Bob, but when she turns around, Bob is nowhere to be seen. Thinking that he must be through the mirror, Yelena, she shoots the mirror. This I guess is to symbolize self-hatred or something? Whatever it is, I'm sure it's very deep. And then she jumps through the mirror. Luckily for everyone, Bob was not on the other side of the mirror, and Yelena winds up in a fight with a drunk version of herself, which forces her to drink vodka. This is to symbolize a more modern version of her personal hell, a callback to the unhappy list she reeled off to Red Guardian earlier, though I'm pretty sure the idea of being choked and fed vodka by Florence Pugh is a personal heaven for some of you in the premiere chat. This memory projection, it just kind of ends.
Enough, Bob.
And you do sometimes get the sense that while the movie has finally lit upon an idea it finds interesting, it's also keenly aware that it's waited far too long to do it, and it now has just 10 minutes left. Which is a shame, because it is genuinely an interesting idea, with which lots of cool and heartfelt things could be done. I think the potential in it, and the fact it presents at face value as a different and more serious end to the usual MCU laser beams and explosions extravaganzas, well, that's pretty neat as well. But we are still waiting for the movie to actually say something definitive about all this. The Mind Palace hellscape is pretty much the room of theme, the place where we're able to address it directly using pretty much every imaginative tool there is. And so far, we've not done that much. Through another mirror, Yelena sees Bob again.
Hi.
Hey.
I just want to talk, okay? About the stuff we spoke about in the vault.
You really didn't speak about much in the vault, so I return to the structural criticism. The two most important beats in the film are the vault and the Mind Mansion, and both of them have been drastically compressed to accommodate a massively generic second act.
What's up?
Not much, just watching New York disappear into a big maze of interconnected shame rooms. You ever seen anything crazy like that before?
They really did have an opportunity to turn her quippiness into a distinctive character beat. If her opening up to Red Guardian had led to essentially the end of her quipping, because quipping is a diversionary tactic and she's come to see the value in emotional honesty, she could have carried that into this exchange as well, and her obviously new approach to Bob could play into their resolution.
How do you want me to say?
That you'll stop.
Oh, it's not me. It's it.
We're on slightly firmer ground here, though the it would have been improved if it was the embodiment of a flaw rather than a pick and mix selection of mental illnesses. The black dog is the common zoomorphic stand-in for depression, for example, but not for depression and multiple personality disorder and delusions of grandeur and whatever the fuck else Bob has going on. He does strike me as the type whose sex tape you really wouldn't want to see leaked. This is going to become a much bigger problem in a moment when we get around to curing Bob, because the chosen cure flatly isn't applicable to a whole bunch of his comorbidities, but we'll get to the group hug in a moment.
I have these good days, where I feel invincible, but then there are a lot of bad days, and I remember that nothing matters.
For now, though, we're really zeroing in on Bob's depression specifically, which is fine. It's just that, I remember the movie insisting that there was loads more wrong with him besides the big sad. Yelena asks Bob if he's just going to sit here and let it win, which seems a little bit insensitive given this is supposed to be the ailment they have in common, so the one she should understand most. She doesn't have to have the right answer to it yet, but she probably shouldn't have no answer to it.
I was not used to fighting it. At least I found a nice room. The other rooms are much worse.
Here at least we get back on something like the track. Yelena's Red Room memories tease the futility of denial. Bob's here saying that, well, at least this is an okay room, but we see him looking through the floorboards at his dad abusing his mother.
You're allowed to make it worse. Always make it worse.
So now we're supposed to see that this room is Bob's version of Yelena's earlier denial, and though the interstitial beats didn't really progress her along a journey, the writers do understand that this can be the catalyst for her new understanding.
What I said to you before was wrong, Bob. You can't stop it down. You can't hold it in all alone. No one can. We have to let it out. We have to spend time together. And even if it doesn't make the emptiness go away, I promise you it will feel lighter.
We're storing up a few problems with this power of friendship thing, but for now, I'm just going to remind you that if Echo was here, she could cure Bob of his trauma with her Native American witch magic. Where is Echo? Somebody should really fetch the queen pin.
I know. Because it already has for me.
This movie's strongest moments all have a compression problem. There was barely a moment to breathe after her exchange with Red Guardian. We had to jump straight into the next action scene. I think we could afford to shave a few minutes off the hilarious elevator shaft sequence and reallocate them to the moments that actually matter, like that one and now this one. Yelena says they can find a way out of the Mind Mansion together and Bob agrees. But then they get attacked by furniture and choked by a curtain until the rest of the Thundertards warp into the rescue. So I have just a couple of notes. I really don't think furniture is the best expression we could find for Bob's mental illness fighting back. We've just seen his dad abusing his mum downstairs. If the mental illness wants to escalate in a way that's actually tied to its own source, which has been the mechanic thus far, we could have had him walk in, have him be super strong or unhittable, have him threaten to overpower Yelena and Bob as one of the most powerful sources of his trauma. Then, how did the Thundertards all warp into this room together? Yelena entered into one of her own private memories. She had to make her way here through several more of those. The implication is that the rest of the Thundertards must have gone through at least some of the Mind Mansion themselves, but that means they'd have had to find each other having gone through their individual memories, and then together they'd have to find Yelena and Bob. That might have been cool to see, given this place is an excuse to tell us pretty much all our characters' deepest, darkest secrets. And some of them really need the work, don't they, Ghost?
What did you see? Are you okay?
Oh, I'm fine. I have a great past, so I'm totally fine.
I guess there was just nothing to write home about in the traumas of Red Guardian, Ghost, John Walker, or Bucky fucking Barnes.
Okay. How do we get out of here? As far as I know, it's just endless rooms.
Good night, yourself. Fuck off.
There's a window behind you and a joke I'm probably not allowed to make. The Thundertards theorize that if this is the best room in the house, the exit is probably somewhere over by the worst room in the house, because why not? And for this part of the movie, the answer to your mental problems is to fight them. Fight them together. Fight them with your friends. Punch the shit out of your other personality. Sock those homosexual urges right in the mouth. Your wife slept with a guy because she really liked his hands. Kill him. Kill her. Kill them both.
He seems nice.
That was Bob's dad, so I guess we're done with that trauma. That chicken was on meth. What did you think the war on drugs meant? Essays? It's worth noting that while all this has been going on, Depression Thanos' shadow has now blipped most of New York. This means A, that the Thundertards punching their way through the concept of trauma isn't doing much to stop or weaken Depression Thanos, even though Depression Thanos was quite pissed off when Yelena and Bob started helping each other out. And then B, there are several million New Yorkers currently living through their own personal hell, and some of them have even been blipped. Back in the Mind Mansion, the Thundertards blundertard their way into the science lab from the beginning of the movie. The idea here is that this was the moment at which Bob hit rock bottom. He graduated from familial abuse to meth chicken on his way to signing up for gain-of-function research. We see quite clearly that he blips a couple of presumed doctors into the Shadow Realm while he was there, and given what we now know about how this all works, those scientists are probably still somewhere in the Mind Mansion mansion being tormented by their worst nightmares, like the time they made coronavirus in a Wuhan lab and then lied about it. This does pose a few problems, not least because it makes it even more ridiculous that news of Bob's transformation never reached Selina Meyer. We might be able to rescue it if we found a way to explain that the scientists were so terrified of what Bob had become that they tried to sabotage and cover up their own experiments. We could even do that in this very room of the Mind Mansion. We could literally meet one of the scientists here who could tell us what they'd done and why Bob had been sent secretly for destruction rather than handed over to Arx. Without that, we just have to accept that they all knew exactly what he was, and they just never got around to telling anybody about it, which is shit.
We were hoisted by our own retard.
Anyway, Bob went to the lab, and I guess Fauci said, hey, come fuck a bat for science, and kaboom, millions of people died.
We're leaving. No.
This is to symbolize that your mental health is stronger than you and it controls reality or something. You might think it's impossible to trap this team with debris given 3 of them are super soldiers and 1 of them can phase shift, but for the purposes of this scene, those powers have been temporarily debuffed.
Let him go. They care about you. You don't matter to anyone.
Since punching your way through depression has worked pretty well so far, Bob goes to town on his depression, and he seems to be winning. That is, until he starts becoming Shadow himself. This is to symbolize that it is, fine to punch other people, but not yourself. You shouldn't beat yourself up unless you're on meth and dressed as a chicken, in which case you're allowed to beat yourself up. Or are you allowed to have the psychic projection of your friends beat you up if you're on meth? Yeah, this mental health angle, I'm not sure it's quite as solid as it was made out to be.
Don't do her.
But that was one of his flaws, wasn't it? Did he lose the delusions of grandeur thing when Mel used the kill switch on him? I get that we're fighting depression here, but depression was only one part of Bob's condition. You can't hurt someone who has delusions of grandeur by calling them a hero. While all this is going on, the Thundertards are making precisely 0 effort to escape, until they decide that it is probably time to escape, at which point it becomes easy. Yelena realizes that whatever Bob's problems are, he probably just needs a hug, because a thematic hug is a cure for all man's ills. And then the rest of the Thundertards realize that, depression only has power over you if you're too lazy to fight back. And you know what? If you totally ignore how little sense it makes, it's a pretty nice scene. No flying around shooting lasers, no massive explosions, no horrifically weightless Rubberman CGI, just the good old power of friendship. And the fact that the power of friendship counts as a marked improvement on the finales of pretty much every MCU film since Infinity War says an awful lot about how terrible all those movies have been. On top of that, having these characters save each other because of who they are as much as what they do means we'll be rolling into Avengers Doomsday next year with the Thundertards as the most fleshed out, well-established, clearly defined team of all the many thousands of returning characters. An asterisk obviously in place for Fantastic Four. They might pip them to the title, but after 2 long and overstuffed phases of content, it is still pretty staggering that this should be the case. The hug is successful, the shadow retreats, the people of New York return from the realm of nightmares and struggle to tell the difference. And it's at this point that I remembered that Daredevil Born Again is supposed to be canon to the MCU, meaning that Kingpin is the mayor of this city. The city is under martial law, the police are shooting random people in the streets, a new country is being formed out of one of the ports, and obviously, none of this works at all, which is why it hasn't been mentioned.
You were great in there, Bob.
Hey, in where?
You fucking what?
What happened here?
You fucking what? Let's just get this straight. We just went through all that. We made Bob the subject of the movie's moral lesson. The Thundertards taught him that he's not alone because he has them. This feeling of connectedness is what allowed him to defeat Depression Thanos. And he just forgot? That's insane. If Bob forgot, then Bob hasn't been fixed. If Bob hasn't been fixed, then he still has all his comorbidities. He tried to become a psycho god before he was Depression Thanos, remember? And he could still become Depression Thanos again if anyone makes him unhappy. Bob remains as dangerous as he was when they entered the Avengers Tower. He is a potentially world-ending threat. What the fuck was the point?
What? No, I don't have backup.
No. You can deal with her later. You're standing next to a guy you haven't fixed. You are still in mortal peril.
I'm going to kill that person.
No, that is really not the most pressing issue right now.
Hold on, what happens when he regains his memory?
We stick together from now on.
But what happens if you don't? What happens if you're split up? What happens if he runs off? What happens if he turns into Depression Thanos while you're all sleeping? What if the next time you go into the Mind Mansion, everything's worse and you can't stop him? We could have left with Bob in possession of his memories, but acknowledging that the shadow will never be completely gone. Leave him with a significant but not perfect measure of control. At least that way he'll have learned something. At least it'll let you say it's as safe as it's ever going to be. This all smells distinctly like we've done it so we can exploit it as a plot point in a later movie. The Thundertards march towards Selina Meyer, who sees them coming and who steps through a tarpaulin wall that I'm pretty sure wasn't there before they went into the Shadow Realm. It's very important to remember that most of the city was sent to the Shadow Realm. We had several shots showing us exactly that.
We live? Great.
You mean to tell me that the entire city was sent to the Shadow Realm, then popped back to reality, and in 90 seconds, Selina Meyer reorganized the press conference, and everyone's gone right back to work? I mean, I get that being a journalist in 2025 gives you a lot of experience with chronic depression, but I do not believe this can be happening.
For years, I have been working secretly to develop a new age of protection. Today, the citizens of the United States needed that protection, and thanks to my hard work, they got it.
Yeah, no, I see what you're trying to do, and it's not going to work. You were getting impeached before this all happened. That was your illegal human experiment that just blipped the city, and it was only prevented by a group of people you tried to have kill each other. No, you're fucking done.
Meet the new Avengers.
The president was the one trying to reform the Avengers in the last movie. I really don't think a publicly compromised in the process of being impeached CIA director can launch a new Avengers as an impromptu press conference. See, if you'd taken my suggestion, if you'd made all this her plan from the start and reconstituted the entire Vault thing as a test, this might have worked. If you'd had Selina Meyer in control throughout, and if you ditched the stupid impeachment stuff, somebody forgot to bring the committee back from the Shadow Realm apparently, this might have worked. If she had knowingly but secretly caused a public disaster, it could even have worked in such a way that would overcome another massive problem with what we've got here. What do you think will happen when people look into these characters and learn that the new Avengers are made up of an evil thief, a former mind-controlled assassin, a dishonorably discharged super soldier who murdered an innocent terrorist, an ex-Soviet super soldier, and a formerly mind-controlled Hydra super soldier who killed Howard Stark and JFK? What I'm saying is that a Selina Meyer who masterminded this whole operation could have deliberately created a team of new Avengers, with the implied approval of whoever the president is now, while simultaneously redeeming them in the eyes of the public. Everything she's hastily spinning on the fly in this scene works so much better if it was planned from the beginning, so why the fuck wasn't it? And of course, all it would take to collapse this entirely is for one of the Thundertards, who she has tried to kill several times, who they know to be an evil, manipulative bitch, all it would take is for one of them to approach the microphone and say, yeah, no, she is an evil, manipulative bitch, and she's responsible for all of this. Absolutely nothing about anything they've done throughout this movie suggests they would do anything other than that. And 5 seconds in front of a surprise press conference is not enough time for them to all change their minds on this point. No, you do not. She remains the head of Ox and the CIA. She's too dangerous to be left alive. You absolutely cannot trust her not to turn the tables on you at any moment. She's already duped you all into one death vault. How long before she tries something like that again? I know she's completely but characters in the movie should not assume that their enemies are completely because that would be completely Much like Yelena's weepy slide down the shower wall every evening, we find ourselves slumped miserably in the mid-credits sequence. It's placed a little bit awkwardly because the bit is Red Guardian being disappointed that a woman in the store doesn't recognize him. He even holds up a box of New Avengers branded cereal and she still just doesn't get it. This is despite the credits themselves showing pretty much wall-to-wall press coverage the New Avengers have received since their formation, meaning that for the mid-credits bit to work, you have to accept that literally nobody reads the mainstream press anymore. And now I put it that way, I retract the criticism. Well done, movie, that's the most believable thing you've done. And that leads us to the post-credit sequence. Truly, it is one of the post-credit sequences of all time. We find ourselves now in pre-production for Avengers Doomsday when this post-credit sequence was actually shot and filmed. It was added to the Thunderbolts theatrical cut a mere 3 weeks before the movie debuted in theaters, and you can tell it wasn't part of that production because everything about it looks entirely different. The sequence helpfully dates this as being 14 months after something. Actually, it's not all that helpful. What do you mean 14 months later? Is that 14 months after the end of the movie, or 14 months after the end of the mid-credit sequence, which looks like it was at least a few months after the end of the movie? Ah, fuck it, I'm not sure it'll matter, except maybe as a tiny detail that the Russos will forget in a way that somehow does tremendous damage to the next movie. The New Avengers now have seemingly all the power and resource of Ox at their disposal, and yes, that's a problem. Does that mean the US government now knows and has chosen to ignore that Selina Meyer is still de facto head of Ox? Is it comfortable with the head of the CIA being in charge of a massive private company with its own private superhero team? There's an interesting premise for a movie there, the corporate versus the state Avengers, but nobody spotted it in time, so, you know, we got Thunderbolts.
But we are the Avengers. The government said so. How does Sam Wilson not understand that?
I got a shield. It's not a shield. It is a shield. It's a shitty shield.
It's round and it's metal, and you wear it on your wrist to provide protection against things that want to kill you. Seems like a shield to me, Bucky. But hey, we've got characters on screen, so obviously we've got to be quipping and bickering. Don't let me stop you, it's all hilarious.
If he puts together a team, and then the team is called the Avengers, and who are the real Avengers?
Well, that's the question the internet has been asking, and judging by the very nasty memes that I've read, they don't think that it's us.
You know the world building in the MCU is in trouble when we're joking about the fact nobody knows who or what the Avengers even are anymore. It's tricky squaring this with Captain Falcon New World Order, or whatever the fuck that film was called, because that movie was rather vague about the state of the Avengers. In fact, what the Avengers are, or were supposed to be, really depends whether you go by the lines in that movie, or by the lines in the trailers for that movie. It seems a bit peculiar that the President of the United States would ask Captain Falcon to reform the Avengers, only for Captain Falcon to save the world from that president, only then for the government to say that fuck the president, the CIA director can make a new Avengers, and the government will call them the Avengers, even though the man cosplaying as Captain America isn't in that team, and presumably has his own plans, and he was the one the president approached to form the Avengers, and he probably did that in consultation with his cabinet, so oh fuck. I do understand that the incompetence of the American government is legendary. At one point during the Syrian civil war, you had the State Department backing the Islamist militants who were fighting the Islamist militants backed by the CIA. Maybe this is one of those situations, but you'd think the president might have final say on which team is actually the Avengers these days.
Weren't you going to talk to him?
I already did.
And?
What poorly.
He's filed for copyright of the name.
Yes, you heard that right. Captain Falcon, who spends so much of Falcon and Winter Soldier bitching about how evil American capitalism has its boot on the neck of the working class, he's decided to abuse the trademark system in a bid to keep a bunch of poor dispossessed heroes down. Are you even allowed to trademark the name of a government service? Because, if you are, I'm gonna trademark the president and sue Trump. And why would Captain Falcon tell Bucky Barnes to fuck off? They ended the Falcon and Winter Soldier as best buddies. Captain Falcon does not currently have a team. His Avengers is just him and Eagle Twink. Why wouldn't the government fold their Captain America into a group they've designated as the Avengers? Why would Captain Falcon be such a bitch that he'd not join the team Bucky had helped assemble? Is it because Captain Falcon was, and will always be a
There's a huge space crisis and no one's telling us about it.
Oh god, a huge space crisis. Don't worry, I'm sure Nick Fury's got a handle on it. He's up on the Saber space station. Remember the Saber space station from the Marvels? That was a huge space crisis, in that the theaters had so much empty space. But now we're supposed to believe that the government has designated this bunch the new Avengers only to not tell them about massively important Avengers-level things, or apparently connect them with the people who are supposed to help them combat that sort of thing.
We're running out of space already? It's impossible. This building is enormous.
Outer space!
I guess Walker didn't get any of his 3 medals of honor for his outstanding services to intelligence.
Run a threat analysis, I want a full report.
But if no one's told you about it, how do you know about it? And how have you been given charge of equipment that will tell you about it? Why would the government designate you the Avengers but not treat you like you're the Avengers?
I heard about Sam Wilson. He's a dumb, litigious man.
True. Fuck Sam Wilson. Hashtag not my cap.
But I'm smart. I'm a smart man. I have a smart soul. Avengers!
Or you could just wait for the US Patent and Trademark Office to tell Captain Falcon to shit off. Red Guardian continues being hilarious. Then the Avengers Tower computer assistant gets back with that threat analysis, and Yelena tells it to fire up the jets.
We wouldn't need to fire up the jets if we had a Sentry who could fly.
Can't be the Sentry without the other side.
That's not true, though. That's not true at all. I mean, well done for remembering, because for a minute there you said you didn't do that. But you were Sentry before Depression Thanos took over, and you could fly before you were Sentry. I suspect what's happening here is that the Russos have made a large part of this post-credit sequence, and they've decided that they want to change Bob's mechanics to rely on something more sensible than amnesia. Having him limited because he cannot be good without risking chaotic evil is a basic but potentially quite profitable device, and I'm sure it will pop up during Doomsday. But it's not the way Bob has worked throughout this movie.
Extra-dimensional ship entering atmosphere.
Extra-dimensional? What does that mean?
The huge space crisis is that a ship hasn't yet arrived from another dimension. Is that something you can even detect? I don't think any previous Marvel movie has established that Earth has the technology to detect what's happening in other dimensions. I'm not sure we can even detect things happening in other universes, and that's not the same thing. The closest I think we've got to that is Cassie Lang mapping the quantum realm because she's a woman in STEM and therefore a super genius. The wizards might be able to. The Ancient One did say their purpose was protecting reality, but the wizards are not a government body, and most of them are dead because Wanda got sand in her vagina.
Cool shit.
Who is it? Oh my god, it's those guys! And that wraps up the post-credit scene, which has the advantage of specificity. It ties into something very obvious, and that very obvious thing is the next thing being squeezed out of Kevin Feige's overworked sphincter. For those who like to score things like this, it makes the Thundertards post-credit scene more useful and, I suppose, more interesting than any other recent entry in the genre. Captain Falcon closed with a man with a rotten ball sack for a head, warning Sam that something will follow at some time, and he should probably be scared by that. Ant-Man 3 gave us the Council of Kangs, but they've all since been arrested by the New York Police Department. The Marvels gave us Monica Rambeau meeting some of the X-Men characters, but I'm not sure we'll ever see her again. Multiverse of Madness saw Doctor Strange and Charlize Theron disappear into somewhere for some reason, and they just never came back. Thor Love and Thunder introduced us to Hercules, who we will probably never see again. Next to all of that, a post-credit scene confirming the existence of a movie we all know is releasing in a few weeks' time is, better? And hey, I guess it invites speculation. If the Fantastic Four are in our universe, does that mean they had to run away from theirs? Does that mean Galactus will win in their film? That would be sensible, because Galactus really shouldn't be a one-and-done villain, but it would also be unusually daring for a modern Marvel movie. So my prediction is that the Fantastic Four probably will beat Galactus. Galactus will be a one-and-done villain, everybody else is. And the Silver Surfer will tell them that Robert Downey Jr. is the real threat because he's coming for his paycheck and we can't afford that. So they zip off to our universe to provide us with a warning. That brings us to the close of Thunderbolts.
This is just one of your average interviews. The tweet says, first they unveil the new Avengers title while standing with Taskmaster's actress, and then this. 3, 2, 1, go.
The best Thunderbolt, and you can't see yourself.
I'm gonna go unconditional. I'm gonna say Taskmaster.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if David Harbour was trying to make a joke or he was messing around, but just like it's just like almost mean.
It feels like the other two. They're like, oh shit, it's the one we fucking killed.
Yeah, we killed without even meeting her. So just, oh yeah, she's a Thunderbolt. Like, no, she's not. We showed that poster where it was like, Taskmaster, this is a Thunderbolt. No, it's not.
A poster wouldn't lie.
True. But
I do like how like all of their laughs are just like, holy fuck, we did her dirty laughs.
Yeah.
Like, they all know.
Yeah, but hey, it's not their fault. They didn't write it.
No, they just have to deal with
Oh
whatever
no, I
the
would
hell.
never insult anyone by calling them a Disney writer. No.